SPORTS. OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
7:30 on this Friday morning. You're welcome along to OTB AM. Eoin and Adrian with you right the way through until 10 o'clock this morning. And we've got rugby for you, we've got golf, we've got football, we've got GAA over the course of the next couple of hours. And it is all in the company with the hardest working man in Irish media. Adrian Barry, good morning to you.
Coming sort of work in short bursts on is my theory here. Do nothing for the rest of the week. Present 2 shows back to back, and everybody thinks you're working really hard. It's the secret to it.
What is the biggest thing you learn from spending an evening in the company of someone like John Giles?
Oh, that is a good question. Somebody was making the point last night that his theory on Trent Alexander-Arnold was that a lot, some time back he wasn't having Trent Alexander-Arnold when everybody in the planet was getting very carried away with this guy, and there's an element of that that's playing out at the minute. I think that everybody's pretty confident that he's going to get back to form, and that there's been a lot of prognosis about him over the last while, but particularly over the last couple of days, obviously, given what's happened during the week. So that was certainly part of it. But you know yourself, John is not a man that gets carried away with latest trends. So it was very interesting last night.
And do you get home then after that, like brain inspired after another brilliant show, and then flick on the golf and get sucked into a whole other world for this morning then?
It was class, yeah, it was class. Like, you're definitely, after presenting the show, you're sort of, it's not easy to go home and just sort of clock off and go to sleep. And then, like, by and large, you go home and, like, the Champions League is over, the Europa League will be done. So it's a bit of a wind down. You're having a look at a few bits, obviously, ahead of today. And then suddenly, this is prime sport on. Shane Lowry's cooking along beautifully. It was a perfect. I was within a whisker cracking a beer last night. I won't lie to you, but my dedication to you this morning meant that I was far more professional than that and managed to steer clear of it. But it was great. It was brilliant to be able to get home, watch a bit of Lowry. It was perfect timing. He's out a bit earlier today, and just a reminder what the potential that's in this weekend.
Yeah, people who know a hell of a lot better than I do about golf have always said that there will be a weekend where Shane Lowry rocks up to Augusta and is right in contention on the final day. Such is his skills around the green, and I think we saw that on a couple of occasions last night, especially on the 16th and the 18th, I thought, where you're like, this guy has the relative weapons in his armoury to ensure that he can contend better than a lot of, say, the big hitters out on tour. And this sort of course may actually be something that plays into Shane Lowry's arms at some point in the future. Whether or not it's going to be this weekend very much remains to be seen. Maybe you get to a case where Justin Rose is just perfect again today, and there's a massive lead going into the weekend, which is just going to be unassailable from everybody's perspective. But Shane Lowry's in a tie for 8th position. He is one under par right there beside Jordan Spieth. And there was that moment. What hole was it on? His double bogey yesterday on 10th, I think it was, and then a few holes later to 15th he puts off the green or chips off the green, I should say, and it's just such an unlucky moment for him at that point, where you're like, God, these greens really are like panes of glass, and they've gobbled up yet another competitor, but yet he comes back with 2 birdies later on in his round, and you're like, hold on a minute, this guy not only has the relative skills to get around this place, he's also got the mental fortitude to actually completely wash off something like that can just happen to you at Augusta National.
Yeah, his scorecard was a mess, wasn't it? Like, when you look at it, and you think that can go one of 2 ways, and particularly, like you say, when you're going around with Justin Rose and you're looking at him playing like one of the rounds of his life, let's face it, and like seeming to do it with relative ease. From a Lowry point of view, I mean, from any playing partner point of view, you could be looking at that going, oh Jesus, well, look at that guy's storming away here, having a chance of catching him no matter what I do over the next few days. So this tournament is done already, but like, that wasn't for Lowry. Like, he grounded out, and it's not as if, like, it's only, I mean, I say only, but it's his 6th appearance at the Masters, so it's not as if he's got this legacy of like 10, 15 years, where they say about getting used to a course like that it takes you that length of time. He's been talking about that himself during the week, and he doesn't have a great record at it. Like, his best appearance at the Masters was the tied 25th last year, and Like how much you could read into that, I'm really not sure, given the time of the year it was played at. So conditions were a bit different. The format was slightly different. They ended up playing 27 holes in a day. He's playing with Tiger Woods. I mean, you're going to get your game up for that kind of thing. So he mentioned as well over the last. You remember a few weeks ago Westwood, one of those tournaments where he came agonisingly close to winning and was interviewed afterwards and was like, "Oh, listen, don't cry too much for me. I'm off to Augusta on Monday to play around with my son." And as it turns out, play around with Shane Lowry. Both were invited up by a couple of members and went up to play the course and get a bit of a feel for it. So, I mean, when you pour all that into the mix, what are you left with? Well, I think, a guy in his 6th appearance at the Masters, getting used to, one of the toughest courses on the planet, having played it under the spotlight with somebody like Tiger Woods, having played up close yesterday with a guy who's having a round of his life, and looking at that, going, not been intimidated by it, but actually been inspired by it. So, look, we said this a few weeks ago. Shane Lowry going well at a major, there is something that speaks to the Irish soul about it. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's 2 fingers up to the rest of the planet, and it's like, look, he's one of us. I can do that. That's what, when I'm looking at Shane Lowry, I'm going, I can win a major.
I'm not. I'm absolutely not. I'm completely in awe of the guy. Like the problem I would have now is if Justin Rose manages to fade back to the field and all of a sudden Lowry's in contention, do the government need to start thinking about reopening the pubs next week if Shane Lowry comes home with the green jacket on his back? How can you possibly have Shane Lowry with a green jacket on his back and not open the Boar's Head, for example? I'm not sure how that could happen. We're going to be joined by Joe Molloy to chat a little bit about that, like all the storylines over the course of yesterday evening. One of the things that, we can chat about Rory later on, but the only other thing I just wanted to touch on with regards to the Masters was Bryson DeChambeau. Yesterday didn't get a birdie in a single hole. What was it, like 5 bogeys in all, or is it I think about 4 under actually, or 4 over? He finished for his round yesterday, and this sort of idea that he could go out and conquer Augusta and that he would destroy this course and that he would be playing off a different part to everybody else was I guess had a sort of comical conclusion to it yesterday, where the traditional golf voices were kind of like, now you don't really know what you're talking about, do you, Bryson? And I think there was a sort of told you so element to it, where everybody kind of is on the bandwagon of bashing Bryson at the moment.
Yeah, and he's not bulking up to win the Masters. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not the course that you go about that game. Like, even the stuff on the range during the week, I was talking to Joe yesterday about whether was that bravado, or is this something he's going to do, go out and try and blitz the course. But it's not really the way, like Fred Couples comes out at aged 84 and can sort of knock it around in 2 or 3 over par. Like, it is definitely, you see that every year, like the likes of Langer or these players that are older players can knock it around in some sort of sensible score. So it's not really the course to be blitzed. And I don't know, look, people take a bit of pleasure in that, don't they? They're like, who is this guy? Who is this guy anyway? And then he gets a bit humbled by a course like Augusta, and everybody takes a bit of pleasure in it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's he's not in the reckoning. It's everybody's takes a bit of delight in that. Day one can have. I bumped into one of our off the ball colleagues yesterday on as I came into Marconi House. So it was a Thursday afternoon. Who was and he was boasting about his picks, his Masters picks. It's a dangerous thing to do on a Thursday afternoon, and we can all look very foolish, right, on a Sunday evening where we've been talking about it, like, oh, Justin Rose, what a player. I mean, I think 1 major, 2 majors. I mean, I think this guy can go on to win 5 or 6 when he's ended up 50 shots off the eventual winner. And look at, I mean, I don't think the same is going to apply conversely to Bryson, right? Like, I mean, I don't think he's going to be the rise from the ashes necessarily, but we can all look like mugs come Sunday.
You're trying to keep that off the ball colleague anonymous, the anonymous colleague who gives golf tips. Is that what you're suggesting?
No. You'd be surprised. You would be surprised by this, by who it was. Name no names.
I apologise to Bryson DeChambeau. He did get a birdie yesterday. He birdied the 15th hole. So apologies to Bryson's team, who I'm sure are tuning into us this morning. There is going to be plenty on the GAA throughout the show this morning. You're going to be chatting to Aidan O'Rourke about, I guess, the bans that have been handed out to Dublin and Monaghan over the past week, about the different policies that have been explored north of the border and south of the border when it comes to elite football and hurling, and when it comes to juvenile as well. Looking forward to speaking to him a little bit later on. The latest basically in the newspapers this morning is that the GAA are going to basically uphold the 12-week ban for Dessie Farrell and are going to investigate the Monaghan situation. And the Irish Independent has a more specific breakdown of what happened at Corduff GAA Club, and on page 8 of the newspaper they say at least 40 players and coaches at Monaghan GAA training session that led to manager's ban. So they've put a number on it and they've got pictures there, and Seamus McEnany is fairly well identifiable there. It looks like a warm-up before a National League game, for example. So we'll have more on that a little bit later on. It is 7:40 on this Friday morning. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Shane Hannon, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, lads. How are things?
Good, thanks. A lot of people would have been watching maybe the Masters last night with Manchester United on a second screen. Maybe you were a little bit more engrossed by United last night. How good were they?
I told you what I thought about dual screeners yesterday.
Oh yes, good point.
It's not a thing, but I know I did turn on the Masters, of course, after the United game had ended. It was a poor enough game generally. Granada created nothing of note, but United probably overall the deserving winners, and really a moment of class from Marcus Rashford. Lovely ball from Victor Lindelof to create that goal, and the first touch, a Berbatov-esque first touch, I would say. The thing of note really that stood out for me from that game was we actually had a streaker. A naked streaker, which I thought would not be a thing during COVID times, especially with no fans. But
did he have a mask on?
He didn't have a mask on. He was very hairy and very very naked. So no mask. He just went for it. Who knows how he got in? But perhaps one of our first streakers of the COVID age, where we have no fans in the stadiums, and yet one seems to have appeared with no clothes on. So quite a moment in that match.
It was probably a steward, was it?
Could have been. Maybe he was quitting the job in a really madhouse kind of way, but it was one of those moments where the TV camera usually cuts away from streakers, of course, as we all know, but it stayed on the streaker for quite a long period of time until they eventually cut away to a zoom in of Marcus Rashford for 30 odd seconds. So a bizarre moment in Granada.
We'll get some greater detail on that from Daniel Harris, I'm sure, very shortly indeed. You've got a roundup of what's happening in the world, Shane?
Yeah, we'll start with the Masters. England's Justin Rose has taken a commanding lead after round 1 at Augusta. He lies on 7 under par after an opening 65, 4 shots clear of Brian Harman and Hideki Matsuyama. Open champion Shane Lowry played well yesterday, taking 71 for a 1 under par score that leaves him in a tie for 8th, while Rory McIlroy unfortunately slumped to a 4 over par 76 and hitting his father with a stray ball in the process during that game, saying afterwards he'd sign a frozen bag of peas for him. While the defending champion Dustin Johnson is 2 over. Soccer next, and as we've just mentioned, Manchester United are on course to reach the semi-finals of the Europa League. They beat Granada 2-0 in Spain in the first leg of their quarter-final last night. Marcus Rashford and a Bruno Fernandes penalty with the United goals. While Arsenal were held to a 1-1 draw by Slavia Prague at the Emirates, substitute Nicolas Pepe thought he had earned the Gunners a slender quarter-final first leg advantage when he broke the deadlock in the 86th minute, but Thomas Hulles headed home in the dying moments of the game from close range to give Slavia Prague a precious away goal. In the Premier League tonight, relegation threatened Fulham host Wolves. The Cottagers will leapfrog Newcastle and exit the bottom 3 if they win. That match begins at 8 o'clock. While Watford continue their push for an automatic promotion from the Championship tonight when they entertain Reading. Victory at Vicarage Road would move the hosts 12 points clear of third-placed Brentford, while Reading currently occupy the final playoff spot, but are just a point ahead of Bournemouth. Here at home, St Patrick's Athletic host Derry City in the SSE Electricity League Premier Division. Kickoff at Richmond Park is at 5:45, while it's a 7:45 start for the meeting of Dundalk and Bohemians at Oriel Park. The Republic of Ireland's women's team, their winless run has been extended, unfortunately, to 5 games. They lost 1-0 at home to Denmark last night in a friendly. Vera Pauw's side travelled to Belgium for another non-competitive match on Sunday. In Gaelic games, this year's All-Ireland finals will be played in August. The GAA has revealed its fixture list for the year, with the Allianz Hurling League first to resume on May 8th and 9th. The Football Championship will again be played on a knockout basis. Meanwhile, GAA President Larry McCarthy says high-profile breaches of their training ban, like that in Dublin and Monaghan, have caused reputational damage to the association. Rangers, Swansea City and Birmingham have begun a week-long social media boycott in protest at online racist abuse. The PFA have applauded the move from the clubs and called on others to join in solidarity. And finally for me this morning, lads, some racing news. It's day 2 of the Aintree Grand National meeting in Liverpool. The Joseph O'Brien trained Fakir Dudery is the favourite for the feature race. That's the Melling Chase. The going is good to soft for the first of 7 races at 1:45.
Shane Hannon, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. We're going to be joined by Daniel Harris in just a moment to put more meat in the bone of that Manchester United game last night. People have been in touch this morning. Stephen Ducker says boat race, the Grand National, the Masters and snooker means summer is almost here. I've never really heard the boat race put in that context with our audience, but that's brilliant to hear that, Stephen. It's already happened, hasn't it? Am I completely making that up, or was it a dream that I had that the boat race has already happened? Brian Dillon says, I love these few weeks because I'm unapologetically a bandwagon jumper. I watch the Masters and the snooker the only time of the year I sit on the couch for hours and hours and hours watching the two sports. If Larry wins the Masters, lads, COVID is cancelled. Hard to disagree with that, Adrian.
Yeah, the only time of the year I sit on the couch for hours and hours watching two sports is unfortunately not something I don't think either of us can sympathise with, Owen, because that's pretty much my life, particularly at the minute. I want to try to carve as much time out of getting away from the kids to spend hours and hours and hours on the couch. But like the conversations in my house are generally, so the golf was on when I put the golf on when I came home last night. What is this? So you have to give a bit of context, and then there's like a sort of a subliminal conversation about it's one of the majors. Okay, well that's okay then, and then you get a bit of a green card to sort of spend those hours and hours and hours. But I mean, there's always something on. It's like the FA Cup. I mean, it's really important.
Yeah, well, that's a tougher card to play, I think, at the moment, Adrian. But yeah, only 3 more to go. So after this weekend of Adrian Barry turning into a couch potato, we're going to have Joe with us a little bit later on to reflect on what happened to Shane Lowry in a positive way and what happened to Rory McIlroy yesterday as well. As you can see on screen, Daniel Harris is on standby. We're going to get to the sports pages after 8 o'clock. Aidan O'Rourke then at 8:10, and John Duggan with his Grand National tips at 8:30. Alan Quinlan will be joining us to look ahead to Leinster against Exeter at 20 to 9. At 9 o'clock then the Masters with Joe, and then the Crappy Quiz, which is a Masters special at 9:20 before we round off with Brian O'Driscoll and conversation with Adrian Barry. Right, let's turn back to the Europa League. Last night it finished Granada 0, Manchester United 2 in the first leg of their Europa League quarter-final. Delighted to welcome Daniel Harris to the show. Good morning, Daniel.
Hello. Hi, morning.
So Manchester United not amazing last night, but basically get the job done from the entire ties perspective.
Yeah, they didn't play particularly well, but they didn't have to, and obviously Granada made it difficult for them to by the way that they played. You watch United and you often hear, well, they don't like it when teams sit deep against them, when teams have organised defences, and I don't think anyone likes that. It's true that United do sometimes lack a bit of fluency moving the ball, but it is quite difficult for any team to play any team when they play in that way. And I think what's sort of happened with United is the goals have dried up a little bit, but they're not conceding very many at all anymore. And once they are able to marry those two things, they'll be a hell of a team.
It also helps if a defence sits deep, but on your team you've got an absolute wonder of a boot in Victor Lindelof, being able to find your attackers.
I think we saw little bits from him and from Harry Maguire last night that you know that they're capable of, and you don't see enough of them. Like when Maguire brought the ball forward and he did that little kind of step over feint, Maguire's good on the ball and he's able to do more of that. And similarly, Lindelof passes it well and he's also not bad on the ball. If you were to start compiling this to their faults, which would not be unextensive in some ways, their ability on the ball would not be one of them. And actually, Maguire's improved in the second half of the season at bringing the ball out, at making that extra man and at drawing out an extra defender. And Lindelof needs to do that too. I mean, we've talked a lot about their shortcomings as individuals and as a partnership because they're not as good as defenders that United have had in the past. But if you get the rest of the team right, they are probably good enough to sustain challenges for the big trophies. And yeah, it was a great pass from Lindelof for Rashford and a great touch and a great finish. Just a little bit before that, one of my mates messaged me and said, "What is Rashford doing on the pitch? He's not fit." And I don't get many right, but I said like more or less that. Like he probably wasn't fit against Brighton, but he scored, and he didn't look fit last night, but he scored. And the thing is with United, when you are struggling to score a little bit, not playing the most dynamic, most regular scorer in a European quarter-final when they can get through it is in some ways asking for trouble. So I wasn't surprised to see him stay on, and I wasn't surprised to see him do something decisive.
Is he shattered at the moment, Marcus Rashford?
I don't know if he's shattered. I think he's carrying injuries, and lots of players will tell you that you're never fully fit. He looks closer to not fully fit than you would like, and I think that today, maybe had the results not gone for United at the weekend in the way that they did, perhaps he wouldn't have played. But they have to go some to mess up Champions League now. Although that is slightly more complicated than people are saying it is, because if City or Liverpool, obviously Liverpool look unlikely to do it, but City, you really think that they might. If City win the European Cup and Arsenal were to win the Europa League, then fourth place won't be enough for Champions League. You've got to finish top three. So it's not quite as cut and dried as people think it is, but perhaps Rashford might not have started last night had United not been so far clear of the rest outside the top four. But at this point, they want to try and win something. So you play him because he's not so unfit, you can't get anything worthwhile out of him, as we've seen in the last couple of games.
Just on your point then about Lindelof and Maguire, are we at a case now where we're starting to reassess the amount of work that needs to be done on that defence? As you say, I think people have changed their mind a little bit about that, because if the other parts in front and beside them are going well, naturally your centre-backs are going to go well too.
Yeah, there was the actual... I wrote at the end of last season, before this season, when I thought United were quite good, and most other people writing about it seemed to think that they were somehow benefiting from some remarkable streak of luck by winning lots of consecutive games, that their defensive record was much better than their defending. I actually think they're defending pretty well now. So I think the thing with Lindelof and Maguire, and it's sort of the same throughout the team, United have a lot of players who are good enough to play in a top four team, almost all of them now. What they don't quite have is enough championship players. Now, I'm not sure that Lindelof and Maguire are at that level, but if you get some other players of that level around them, then they can be good enough. And the question now is who United are going to buy and in what positions they're going to strengthen. I think that, Ollie would obviously love Haaland, but I think lots of other teams would love Haaland as well, and that it's probably unlikely that he's going to go United. But they could do with another reliable regular scorer. Now, they might try and integrate Mason Greenwood at centre forward and try and find someone to play on the right who's able to do that. They might hope that Amad Diallo is going to be good enough to play on the right and try and find another centre forward. They might buy number 6. If they do buy the right number 6, let's say they buy Declan Rice, I think that is probably the most likely thing that United will do this summer, then that immediately takes pressure off the defence, because he is going to protect the defence and he's going to enable them hopefully to play a little bit higher because he's got some pace and he'll afford them more protection, and that will help the rest of the team score more goals. So yeah, Lindelof and Maguire are always going to be slightly vulnerable to balls in over the top, to balls in behind them, to strikers with pace and strikers with quick feet, because those are not things that either of them have. The cover from Luke Shaw and Aaron Wan-Bissaka is getting better, and the cover in front of them is getting better. And United, whatever people say, they are trying to become a more dominant front foot team. And that in itself means that the defenders are going to be under less pressure. They're going to have less to do because the team's going to have more of the ball. So I think that Ole would like another centre-back to play instead of Lindelof and with Maguire. Personally, it's not where I'd start. And I think that whether he starts there probably depends a lot on the players he thinks are available for that position and the players he thinks are available for the other positions that he'd like to fill.
In some ways, it's incredible, Daniel, that we're talking about Manchester United defending well and Bruno Fernandes not playing as well as he once did and being as influential as he was, and maybe that's part of the reason for their success. When you look at it in an overall sense, obviously out of the FA Cup, but shaping up to be another season of a step forward for Solskjaer, 15 points off even second last season as a guide. Not to mind top and almost certain now for at least another Europa League semi-final. What's your manager rating of Solskjaer this season in terms of steps forward with player development and the overall grand plan?
I guess it depends how it goes from here, but I would say that the cup game against Leicester was probably the most vexed I've been. I tend not to... Football's meant to be fun, try not to get vexed about football. But the team that he picked against Leicester, to me, was totally unacceptable because... First of all, you've got an opportunity to win a trophy, a really good opportunity to win a trophy. And United, last season, he rested players for the game against Chelsea, the Cup semi-final. And that I understood because I wasn't pleased about it. But United were trying to finish in the top four. I'm absolutely certain that's what his bosses told him his imperative was. and they played an absolute load of consecutive games, and he didn't trust basically anyone outside the first 11. So he rested players for the league in the cup semi, and they got battered, and it was annoying, but I felt I could understand why he did it. Against Leicester, didn't really feel that, because United had been able to rest players a little bit. They've got more players that are reliable this season, and not only was it an opportunity to win a trophy, but it was an opportunity to defend the treble that Ole was the man who clinched. And to me, as a United supporter, not as a football writer, I obviously don't care so much about this, but every season begins with the imperative to defend the treble. No other team in English football has done that, and United should be making sure, doing everything they can to make sure that no team ever does that. And really, the only way they had of preventing that from happening now was to stick in the cup and hope to beat City. I mean, on the other hand, you definitely don't want to lose an FA Cup final to City as part of them completing the treble. You definitely don't want that at all. So perhaps it was actually for the best in the end, but you would want United to be able to do something to try and prevent that from happening, as well as also winning the cup. And it felt like they tossed that, and they lost quite comfortably to Leicester in the end. But I mean, it was 1-1 at half time, and they barely played, and that was quite frustrating, because United are a better team than Leicester with better players, and their best is better than Leicester's best. But if you don't get anywhere near that, then you will lose to Leicester, who are a really good team. And so to do that was, I found, extremely frustrating. But to come back to the original question after that long detour to air a grudge, I think United have done pretty well, and I think Ole's done pretty well. Depends if they win the Europa League from here and finish second. I think you're looking probably at an 8, given that first at this point is out of reach. Like I've always said at the beginning of the season, that I felt that if it was a low points tally that won the title, then United actually had a chance, because I felt that they had better players than people thought they did, and they were better than people thought they were, and they had goals in them. But they weren't ready to go and get 85 plus points at this point. And so what they're actually doing is not far off their maximum. I mean, watching the Europa League still find a bit annoying, because they should still be in the Champions League. And watching the Champions League the night before and watching Paris win at Bayern Munich was also annoying, because I don't think Paris is that much better than United. I mean, Mbappe is obviously better than any player that United have, but United won in Paris by being a much better team than them. Then they battered them again for 20 minutes when they played them at home, and should have won that game too, and they didn't. So points off for that. So yeah, somewhere between 7 and 8.
Which is a really ringing endorsement, given that you're probably dealing with a lot of 5 out of 10s for the last number of years. But we had one of our pundits on the show last night, and we were asking him about who he felt the best coaches on the planet are at the minute, and maybe no great surprise, he spoke about the likes of Zidane, Pep, and Klopp. I mean,
spoke about Zidane as one of the best coaches.
Yeah. You're not
I don't think that anyone would say that Zidane was a good coach. I mean, Zidane,
does he not get a hard rap? Is it you subscribe to that he's got all the best players, and so why wouldn't he be?
It's not just he's got all the best players. I mean, by every account that you hear, the changing room that won all those European Cups was run by Ronaldo, Ramos, and I think Kroos. Look, there's a reason why they kept winning Champions Leagues and didn't win leagues. And the reason they didn't win leagues, and the teams that were beating them to leagues, half the time weren't even any good, really, was because they were unable to sustain it over a season, because Zidane wasn't doing that much. But when it came to the big games, he had the best midfield and he had Ronaldo, and that can be hard to beat. I didn't see, I'd be interested to someone who thought Zidane was a good coach to pinpoint what aspect of good coaching he was performing. But I think also that people misunderstand what it means to be a good coach. Being a good coach isn't just coming up with good tactics. And so I think when people are criticising Ole, that is one of the things that they're thinking, why aren't they doing what Klopp is doing? Why aren't they doing what Guardiola's doing? But there are other aspects of coaching too, and maybe we can say that Zidane's good at this, is creating an environment in which the players improve and in which the players succeed. And as it goes, I mean, I don't think Ole does that much of the coaching. I think he's generally the Ferguson model, where you get coaches that you think are good. And whether he's done that is an arguable point. I don't know. I've never seen Michael Carrick coach. I've never seen Kieran McKenna coach. And I think most of the people that gob off about whether they're good coaches or not have never seen them coach either, and don't have very much to say about whether they're any good or not. What I think you see with Ole in general and with United in general is that sometimes he gets the tactics absolutely bang on, like the game they won at City. Sometimes he gets the lineup bang on. Other times he gets it really wrong, and he got it really, really wrong when they played to Leipzig away. He went 3 at the back and he played Matic as well. And in fairness, you haven't seen him do that since. Now, more or less, United, when they go to play, they're picking teams to win, and they're not really picking teams to sit and counter. So when you talk about Ole's coaching, one of the things I would look at is which players have improved. And it's not difficult to tick them off. Luke Shaw has improved. Wan-Bissaka has improved, gone backwards, improved again. I think Maguire's improved in influence. I think Lindelof's improved in influence. I think that Scott McTominay has improved. I think that Marcus Rashford has improved. Now, you can say that they're just players getting better because they're at the age where they're still getting better and they're improving themselves. But it often seems with Ole that he gets criticised when things go badly, and when things go well, people kind of assume that it's because of something that someone else is doing, or some kind of coincidence. So I'm absolutely certain that there are coaches who are better at doing certain aspects of coaching than Ole is. But I think that we need to understand that a lot of the people that say he's not a good coach have never seen him coach. And a lot of the people who describe him coaching are really only looking at one aspect of what coaching is. And like very specifically, like, is he directing his players to do particular things at particular times? And like, maybe he's not doing that. But if you see his team improving, I mean, ultimately, you think, like, are United, where are they performing in accordance with where you think they should be performing? Are they performing below their level? Are they not the second best team in the league? Are they the best team in the league? No, I don't think anyone would say that they were. City are the best team in the league in their top. Now, are United the next best team in the league? And that would be a debate. Some people would say, no, Chelsea got the next best players, or Liverpool have got the next best squad, with Chelsea more than the next best players. Liverpool have got the team with the next best players. Well, in that case, why are they below United? And who is making that happen? And is that nothing to do with the manager, or is that something to do with the manager? I mean, it's a real head scratcher.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned a few moments ago, Daniel, about Declan Rice, that Manchester United should try and sign him. He would obviously improve any midfield he goes into at the moment. It's going to be interesting in the context of United, though, if they try and sign him, because it'll naturally have something to do with the Jesse Lingard move. How would you operate that if Declan Rice is used as some sort of make weight for Lingard and a permanent move to West Ham? Well, if you were negotiating for Manchester United, how would you negotiate with West Ham this summer?
I think it'll be quite like West Ham. I mean, you'd obviously be trying to use the position that West Ham really do need to sign Lingard now. He's played too well for them to miss out on him. I mean, I think that Lingard is not going to be worth more than £30 million. I mean, they can pretend that he is, but he's got a year left on his deal. So he's only going to, however well he plays, I mean, I messaged a friend who supports West Ham the other night saying it's now going to be, you're now going to be giving us Rice and cash for Lingard, but it's not going to be like that. I mean, Lingard is going to be somewhere around the £25-30 million mark, and the negotiation, if there is one, will actually be what is Declan Rice worth. I mean, the thing about Rice is that there may well be a better player than Rice out there who does a similar job, who you get for less money. But I think the thing with Rice now is that you know what you're getting. He's done it in the Premier League, he's done it for England, and he's able to play a Premier League tempo, and he's able to stay fit playing a season, apart from now, obviously, playing a season like this one, playing almost all the games. And that robustness is really important, and that knowledge of what you're going to get is really important. And I think the other thing you get with Declan Rice is that, like, he wants to win, and he wants to play football, and he loves playing football, and that comes through every kind of interview that he gives. He's got this phrase, and I don't know if anyone's noticed it, maybe it's just me, but he always says, we as players, when he gives interviews, and you kind of get like a real pride in being a footballer from Declan Rice. We as players. And a really like, I mean, not a serious individual, but a serious competitor and a serious footballer. And it's very specifically the kind of thing that Ole likes. And I'd be very surprised if he wanted to fill that position and he didn't want to fill it with Declan Rice for all those reasons, beyond everything that he offers playing football. And I've said before, to me, he looked a bit like a centre-back playing in midfield. But I think particularly over the second half of the season, he's looked like quite a bit more than that. He's bringing the ball forward. His passing is better. So I think that the negotiation will be tricky because obviously each side has something that the other side wants. But I think the value of what United have is limited. And the question in the end is going to be, are they prepared to pay the kind of top-up that West Ham are going to want for Rice?
Very quickly then, Daniel, separate to Declan Rice, if he was out of the equation, would you take Jesse Lingard back to Manchester United next season?
No. I like Jesse Lingard. I've always liked Jesse Lingard. I think he's a really good player. But one of the reasons it's working for him now is because he's playing every week and he doesn't have quite the same pressure. And I wouldn't want to take him out of that. Like, at the age that he's at now, he needs to go and play. He's never going to be a first choice for United, no matter what he does. And they don't just have Bruno Fernandes for his position, they have Donny van de Beek. And they also have Hannibal Mejbri coming through, and I think he will be playing in the first team sooner rather than later. Yeah. If top 3 or whatever it is secure before the end of the season, I think we'll see Hannibal Mejbri this season. And United have so many good young attackers coming through. Anthony Elanga's another one, was on the bench last night. And I don't think that the opportunities that Lingard's going to want and need are going to be available to him. And I don't think that it makes sense for United to keep him either, because I think that they need to start getting other players involved. I think Ahmad is another one who can play in Lingard. He can play behind the strike. He can play off the wing. He can play in Lingard's position. And United are now good enough to be able to integrate these players into the first team with all the other players playing, such that I'm not saying Lingard isn't good enough to contribute. I'm not saying that at all. Lingard is more than good enough to contribute and has contributed in the past. And you can see how good he is from how well he's playing now. But there's a reason why it's all working for him now, and those circumstances aren't available to him at United. So I think that, I think for his sake, he needs to go, and I think United are in a good position to be able to move on from him too.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Daniel, great stuff. Thanks a million.
No worries, lads. See you again. Have a good day, everyone.
Daniel Harris there on the line, reflecting on Manchester United getting their 2-0 win against Granada last night. Right, it is 6 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning. We've got a packed show still to come on OTB AM. There is TheMasters with Joe Molloy. We'll hear from Alan Quinlan. We are talking GAA with Aidan O'Rourke. And up next, we'll bring you the sports pages.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the ball.
So anybody whose question I read out gets a Cadbury hamper, no less. So Teddy, one for you.
Where's mine?
It's on route.
Honestly, it's the first Cadbury's appearance I've been to. It's the first Cadbury's appearance I've been to where I've walked in a room and not seen any chocolate. It's embarrassing.
Is that not your little fat little sausage? That's why.
Did you hear what he said then? Call me a fat little sausage. You can't call me a fat little sausage on camera, I mean.
No chocolate for Gaz. That's what they said on the front door.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, browse through dozens of new player markets, all powered by Opta. Shots on target, left foot, right foot, headed goals, assists and more. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Automower.
Automower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Automower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
You're welcome back. 8 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning. Let's have a look at the sports pages. We'll start with OTBSports.com. Sponsor distances themselves from Masters stunt by player's son. Brian O'Driscoll, Exeter report what Leinster must exploit on Saturday. More on the golf, on the angle of Lowry as well. Lowry finishes under par at Augusta as Rose blooms into commanding lead. Meanwhile, Ireland are lacking that number 10 who can make something of nothing. That's Karen Duggan speaking on the football show last night. And then the other golf news is McIlroy offering to autograph frozen peas after hitting his dad at Augusta. A remarkable moment where Rory McIlroy has just reached the point where if you don't laugh, you'll cry, really, when it comes to his current form. But hopefully he'll get it back in the next couple of months. The Irish Independent is where we're going to start papers-wise this morning. GAA poised to examine bans imposed by county boards. It seems that they have finished examining the Dublin ban imposed on Dessie Farrell, and they have banned him for 12 weeks, so they've basically given the same ban. They've said we'll see about that, but then they've handed down the same thing. They're going to see about what Monaghan have done with Seamus McEnany, but don't be surprised to see another 12-week ban. And Leinster set to call upon Fardy for huge clash against Exeter, so it looks like Ryan Baird may start on the bench tomorrow. The Irish Times This morning leads with the golf. With Augusta back in season, many wilt under the challenge, writes Philip Reid, and body language portrays another frustrating round from Rory McIlroy. The Irish Examiner this morning leads with the GAA. Constraints on time forces GAA into knockout Sam Maguire, so the football is going to operate the same as last year, and the hurling as well. And GAA on last warning after unacceptable training breaches. There's quotes there from Jack Chambers. The Daily Telegraph goes with the headline, "Watch out, Dad. Rory hits his own father in nightmare round," and fans face COVID checks to attend summer events. So a negative coronavirus test or proof of vaccination to attend sporting events this summer is what they're talking about in the UK. The Irish Daily Star, from dad to worse, tab of the morning to you. McIlroy's share the pain at the Masters. McCarthy fury over breaches. Meanwhile, Larry McCarthy is hit out at the Dublin and Monaghan breaches, and FAI given extra time. So UEFA expected to allow the FAI and government until April 28th to make the final submission on whether or not they can host their European Championship games this summer. The Irish Sun goes with the headline, "Rash and trash. United put one foot in the semis as Gunners hit by late sucker punch." The Mirror is next up. "This must end now. Cop captain launches campaign to stamp out racist abuse on social media." Jordan Henderson campaigning to force real change in the fight against online racism and abuse. His account being taken over by a cyberbullying organisation this weekend. "Capital cost" is the headline on the back of the Irish Daily Mail. Dublin's home advantage in league is gone, and Leinster won't be caught cold again, says Scott Fardy. The London Times, social media boycott over racist abuse, as I've mentioned. Premier League managers back week-long action. And Aintree treble for Ferguson. Alex Ferguson celebrated what he described as "my first hat-trick in Liverpool" as horses co-owned by him won the first 3 races on the opening day of the Aintree Festival yesterday. "Watch out, Dad" is the headline on the back of The Guardian. McIlroy hits father with ball in tough Masters opener. And FA wants 45,000 fans at Wembley for Euro 2020 semi-finals and final. And then lastly, from the Irish papers, GAA says bans are null and void. McEnany and Farrell punishment won't be decided by county boards. Just going to bring you a couple of sports pages from Australia this morning. The preliminary finals in the AFLW are taking place. There on the right hand side, her Collingwood team are going up against Brisbane tomorrow morning at 7:10. The other preliminary final is Adelaide against Melbourne, and we can also bring you the Courier Mail, and it's a photograph there of Orla Dwyer on the furthest right there, I think, in that photograph. So the Irish down under doing pretty well for themselves, to say the very least, at the moment, and it's great to see them getting such coverage and great to see them on the front of the Australian newspapers. A couple of comments in from earlier on. Peter Punt says, "It is all about Aintree and the rugger for me for the next 2 days." Well, the good news for you, Peter, is that we've got Alan Quinlan coming your way, and we've got John Duggan with his Grand National tips coming your way as well. Trevor Costello says, "Ole is a good man manager, not a great coach or in-game tactician. Too conservative and pragmatic at times, never uses his squad, and he takes an age to make changes." That has certainly been one of the criticisms levelled at Solskjaer over the past couple of months, especially when he sees some of his players tiring. But I guess the proof is in the pudding last night that the quality is there and that they're definitely a better team than Granada. Didn't play well, but look like they will be going through to the last 4 of the Europa League. Right, as I mentioned, we are turning our attention back to the GAA at 8:13 this morning, and delighted to welcome All-Ireland winner with Armagh, Aidan O'Rourke, to the show. Good morning to you, Aidan. There's a couple of things we want to touch on this morning. The first thing, I guess, is just the big story over the past couple of days, the Monaghan situation, the Dublin situation, a 12-week ban being handed down to the managers. It looks like the GAA is going to take the same decision that the county boards took themselves. Is that fair enough in your view?
Yeah, listen, I suppose if you benchmark it against what happened previously with down in Cork, Paddy Talley got 8 weeks. And I suppose this can be viewed as an escalation or a larger breach of protocols or regulations. So 12 weeks is probably what would be expected. I know there was a PR arm to this in terms of the county boards been seen to take preemptive strikes, but the GAA are always going to take control of the disciplinary side of these things.
Yeah, for the idea that this would actually put the brakes in the season, that was probably a bit of an overreaction, was it, over the past week?
I would have thought so. I mean, you need to take this in context around, where we are socially and what the feeling on the ground is. I think the GAA, not unlike the government, I suppose, have lost the room a little bit with the current restrictions with regard to outdoor activity, and I'm not sure there was a massive appetite for much of the book being thrown at Dublin and Monaghan in this instance at the moment.
What is the main reason why they've lost the room, in your opinion?
Well, if you take a step back from the GAA and look at this in a sporting context, I mean, at the moment I am involved with coaching at a variety of levels, but in particular, juvenile underage would be my main focus. And if you take a step back and see what other countries are doing, we're very much have a third world approach here to outdoor sport. I mean, if you look at the science and research, outdoor sport should have been mandated months ago. It's what's happening in other jurisdictions. It is safe to do. There's a frustration around all of that because we're looking on. We see what has been discovered about the transmission of this virus internationally, and we're still in the last spring restrictions. So I suppose in that context, there's a huge amount of frustration around where we are and the lack of progress that's out there around sport. And we're moving into a world here where everything is going to be outdoors, where our habits and our routines are going to be built around outdoor activity. We should have been getting ahead of the curve with this, and instead here we are 12 months and more later, still operating under these draconian public health regulations.
Is it fair to say that your frustration mostly lies with not amateur players, everybody's amateur in the GAA, but maybe underage players and children more so than the elite players, because obviously that they've had to toe that line carefully, the GAA, it seems, about requesting elite status or getting back because of maybe the brakes being put on them a bit last year?
No, I think there's a two-pronged situation here. Obviously, the youth sport thing is a huge frustration for a massive amount of people. And then, I suppose, as a parent, I would have felt that frustration keenly over the last 4 or 5 months in particular when we see other parts of the world moving on. And there has been the opportunity to reach down and try and support kids, give them outdoor sport back in a safe environment where it can be controlled. And I mean, I'm like a broken record for anybody who knows me on this. The science supports that, and as a society that we didn't take that opportunity to support young, vulnerable people is a huge frustration that'll stay with me for forever, probably. And within all of that, I think sporting bodies, and in particular the GAA, who class themselves as a community organisation first and foremost, that they haven't given a voice to kids in this. For me, is my allegiance to and involvement with the GAA will forever be marked by their lack of action on this. But if you want to focus on the second prong of this, the inter-county side of things, I mean, again, that's our own doing. GAA status was established for inter-county activity, and it was let go by the GAA for their own reasons. They'll have to explain those themselves. And you have the anomaly here where elite status remains for inter-county teams in the north. So, for example, when the Down training incident occurred, somebody called the PSNI. PSNI turned up and acknowledged that this was an elite team training and nothing to see here, but obviously fell foul of the GAA's own rules and regulations. So elite status should still be there. There's no reason why not. I'm reading articles this morning about, the curtailed season because of the lack of time. That's the GAA's own doing. National League could have gone ahead in its scheduled window, and we could have been planning in detail for the club season now. And obviously, in my view, we should be further ahead with that, but we could have been detailing out a club season. And again, the club player is at the back of the queue with all of this. I mean, the GAA seems to think when they make pronouncements that everybody's waiting on tenterhooks to hear when the national leagues and championships are starting. That's not the case for the vast majority of the membership. You want to know when everybody can get involved. And Intercounty, yes, is jewel in the crown and very important, and where everybody loves to have those role models and people to look up to, but it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah, like when it comes to that elite status then slipping through the fingers of the GAA, it's probably not just on them, is it? Like, just to counter that a little bit, like there's probably a huge political aspect to it as well. Like, I remember Micheál Martin coming out in February saying that they just wanted to keep activity levels low in society, and I think maybe that point around activity around GAA grounds or whatever it may be was something that the government had been acutely aware of, and I think they'd been acutely aware of the GAA and maybe some of the celebrations that they'd seen after club games last year, that for all we know the GAA had been lobbying hard for this, and I guess the political pressure that came back on them was, no, you're not getting this.
Well, I suppose I'm not sure where you're getting your information from on that, Owen, but that's not my understanding. The GAA had an opportunity to retain elite status if they had wished, but didn't push the buttons on that. I mean, all of this is behind doors, so closed doors, so we're not going to be able to bear all that out. I'd really love them to set out exactly why elite status, as you say, slipped through their fingers last year, and why it wasn't possible in the springtime. Because as a GAA man, first and foremost, but involved more broadly in sport professionally, I am involved in facilitating elite sport as the months have ticked on. I look at other sports having their icons and role models on the TV. I look at other athletes down the tiers who aren't quite at the top level yet, still with elite status, and I scratch my head as to why the GAA's flagship competitions don't go ahead. Because remember, during lockdown too, intercounty activity was many people's saviour here. You know, whenever the championship was able to kick in last autumn, it made a huge difference to us as a society. I mean, obviously I'm embedded in sport, but you know, to have those games to look forward to at the weekend was a massive thing for people who are involved in the GAA at all levels, and we've been deprived of that now for months. And you know, that it was at our own hand is a huge frustration.
Just in relation to the I mean, like you said, we don't know. There could be a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes that Croke Park that we're not privy to, and that you know, we may find out about over the course of time. So it's important to say that, obviously, in the context of having nobody from the GAA directly on the line as well. What would you like to see in terms of you're clearly moved by a lack of action over the last number of months. What would you like to see is in terms of an ideal outcome here? I know there's been like SOPs to return to play in terms of, like, you know, we can do some training, there can't be any contact. What would you see at this juncture now, a year, a bit more into this thing, that would be a good solution to get kids and to get people back playing?
A very simple answer to that: immediate return to sport at all levels, outdoors, through regulated sports clubs. I mean, that's pretty simple as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you have a couple of anomalies here. In the north, obviously, everybody is back this coming Monday. It's not non-contact, it's everybody's back in groups of 15. And then 2 weeks later, kids only are back in the 26th, from Monday the 29th or whatever that Monday is. So even if you take that, and I suppose I'm involved in sports, so I'm looking at international best practice all the time. Non-contact is an anomaly. It makes absolutely no difference, and putting that restriction on has no health benefit or no impact on the transmission of the virus. That's a early 2020 view, whenever we were obviously very cautious, necessarily so, about how we resume. Also, groups of 15, there's nothing, show me the data that supports that, minimising the risk on the transmission of the virus. So, I mean, you may detect that at this stage I've sort of gone past the point of using softer language and tipping my hat to people, because I mean, this is a no-brainer. I mean, the opportunity this presents to people who are involved in sport to get out, do something healthy, build good habits around their lifestyle. I mean, there's no downside to this. The argument from those who are making it at the other end is that we can't trust people. We can't trust people to go to their local soccer or GAA club and not share a car. We can't trust them not to use the dressing rooms. We can't trust them generally, and that's a social comment, I suppose, on the people we've elected. But for me, in particular, as for the GAA, as first and foremost a community organisation, I do trust people. I saw the protocols that were built last summer and autumn. I saw how safely sport was delivered. I've seen the research internationally that shows zero transmission during the playing of sport outdoors. So, I mean, I'm beyond the point of saying I hope we get there in the next few weeks. That's nonsense. We should be there already. And the world has gone mad.
Can you explain then as well, Aidan, just for people who might be coming to this conversation new, I know you say you're like a broken record on this, but people will be listening to you for the first time quite a bit this morning. When it comes to what people under the age of 18 say have been missing out on for the last year, when you've actually dug into the science of this, when you've balanced the benefits of coming back versus the negatives of coming back, what are the benefits that those children have missed out on over the past couple of months in particular?
Well, I suppose those benefits will be fairly obvious to any parent who has a child involved in sport. There's a judicial review actually ongoing in the north, which looks at the impact of depriving kids of sport outdoors during the pandemic, and looks at just how much of an overreach that has been. The benefit of sport, I mean, I've seen instances in my own social circle of kids, personalities disappearing, their behaviour changing. Kids are within their own family group for long periods of time. And remember now, with small periods off, we're in this more than 12 months. So kids adapt, okay, they are adaptive or whatever. But the benefits of being outside, being healthy, having that structure in their week, being able to socialise with their friends for those 2 or 3 times a week when they're down at the pitch, just having those social connections are massive to where kids are in terms of development. And the pandemic of physical and mental health that we have coming down the track here, which has been pushed back, is going to be probably more difficult to deal with in this country. And it's not than the pandemic. And it's not just kids, I think we're all familiar with the numbers rising in terms of mental health issues in the country, where suicide rates are. I mean, there has to be a balance when you look at the public health good here. And not for 1 minute am I dismissing the danger of COVID and the impact it can have on the vulnerable. But there comes a point where we have to move on. We have to learn to live outdoors more than indoors. And we're well past that point.
Yeah, I think there's been a distinct lack of leadership in that regard as well, in terms of that return to getting people outdoors, to getting them involved in sport in whatever shape or form that might be. And I think particularly in this country, we've a minister, a quasi-minister for sport, who's more interested in publishing press releases to, say the obvious thing about what everybody's thinking about the Monaghan stuff over the last week and the Dublin stuff. Get the press release out and tell everybody how outraged you are about it, but refuse to come on a show like this, despite several requests from to come on and discuss topics like this over the last 6 months. I think we get a good insight into what that leadership is about. But look, maybe he'll respond positively to one of the requests at some point over the next little while. The fixture list obviously came out yesterday, and I know that obviously it wasn't the from a Croke Park point of view. I'm sure that they looked at events over that were breaking overnight and had their head in their hands over it. But look, at that notwithstanding, it is some positive news in terms of giving us all a bit of a breather and something to look forward to. What have you made of the revised fixture list?
Yeah, listen, given the time frames, it's probably what fits best. It's not ideal by any means, and we'll not go back over the ground that we've covered that. We've missed a huge opportunity to shop window our games again this year. But listen, it gives everybody games in the calendar to look forward to. I'm sure county players are hugely frustrated. Remember, playing inter-county football or hurling is a very small window, and two of, I don't know what the average is, probably 5 or 7 years. 2 of those years for a lot of people are now going to be badly impacted. So they're probably very keen to get out there and get at it, notwithstanding teams that have been doing a bit, obviously, at this point. But the fact that we have games and the beginning of a calendar is very positive.
When it comes to that football season then, Aidan, you look at last season and this season, there are going to be teams maybe who get 2 games in championship over the course of 2 years, not having a back door. I think the line is in one of the newspapers this morning that I think all the Division 4 teams ended up losing their first game last year, and it might well happen again this year. I guess it is just one of those realities where you're lucky to have games and everybody's a club player, and there should be a vibrant club scene once again this autumn. Yeah,
I suppose for me the club game is, I suppose, the priority, because the vast majority of our members play there. But inter-county seasons are very, very important in terms of player development and, even recruitment and retention of players. You need that showcase at the top. It is. I mean, if you're an inter-county coach at the minute, it's hugely frustrating, because going into the championship last year, the reality was that you weren't going to be able to make much progress with the team. That roughly where teams were when cessation came last spring was roughly where they were going to be. There wasn't going to be an opportunity to really coach and develop a team and make ground. And the reality is, it's going to be same, because nobody has gonna have had the opportunity to develop and change what they do. So playing patterns, style of play, none of that's going to have changed now over the course of 2, and you could argue 3 seasons by the time we get to the end of 2021. So yes, it's great to have the games. The competitions are very important, but in terms of development of our game and our teams, I mean, they're going to have stood still for 2 years now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the coming months anyway. Aidan O'Rourke, former Armagh footballer and current sports performance manager at Queen's University Belfast. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, lads.
Thanks a million. It is 32 minutes past 8. Just to let you know, another busy weekend on Off the Ball over the next couple of days. On Saturday, the Saturday panel is an Aintree Grand National preview and memories with Davy Russell and David Mullins. Dermot Gillette will be on to talk about the Masters. On Football Saturday, Damien Delaney and Johnny Ward are going to join the lads. And Women's Six Nations chat with Louise Galvin, building up to Wales against Ireland, is also on Saturday. Then from 5:30, live commentary of Exeter against Leinster in the Champions Cup. Johnny Murphy is going to join Neil Tracy for that one after they missed out on their outing last Friday. Sunday then, the paper review features Vincent Hogan and Cliona Foley. There will be rugby reaction to Wales, Ireland and Leinster, Exeter. There will be a Masters latest with a voice from Golf Weekly, and then live Premier League commentary from 4:30. Spurs versus Manchester United. Vinny Perth is going to be with Stephen Doyle for that one. John Duggan, good morning.
Owen, how are you?
Good, thanks. A busy weekend. We were kind of talking about this over the course of yesterday. Aintree and the Masters coming together for you in a spectacular couple of days.
Yeah, looking forward to it, and really enjoyed last night's Masters coverage. As always, the opening day, there's unexpected things that happen, especially Justin Rose playing the last 11 holes in 9 under par. He went berserk in a good way, and he's got a 4-shot lead on the field. So it really is now all about Justin Rose at Augusta, Owen. If he continues to play the way he's playing, it could be quite a boring weekend for us watchers.
Do you think that's a possibility of happening? Like, it definitely seems that he has that in his armoury after yesterday, that he can just negotiate his way around this. Like, he described the pin placements as fair afterwards. I mean, were they that forgiving?
No. Yeah. We saw that by the limited amount of players that were under par, only 12 of them. And even John Ram was speaking about how difficult it was. The wind was swirling. Justin Rose just went mad on the greens. He hasn't played in a month. He's had back issues. He's only reunited with his old coach, Sean Foley. But he does have a lot of good history at Augusta. It's the 4th time he's been leading or co-leading after the first round. Only Jack Nicklaus has been in that position. He lost the playoff to Garcia in 2017. He was second as well in 2015. Remember, even back in 2004, he was leading after the first round. He's an Olympic champion. He's a US Open champion. He's a major winner. Just recently, he hasn't been showing the form that would have led anybody to believe that he would have done what he did yesterday. But he just got a run going with an eagle on 8 and then just went mad on the back 9, playing with Shane Lowry, who played very well with a 1 under par round, but Rory McIlroy really struggled with a 4 over round. But I'm kind of thinking with the firm and fast conditions, there could be thunder showers and that might make the course a little bit softer. But it was very difficult out there because the greens are very fast and you need to land the ball in the right spots and you need to putt with a lot of confidence, because if one goes past, there's always the chance of missing the one back. And Justin Rose, really, if he shoots around in the 60s today, he's got a major chance of winning the tournament. But if he comes back to the field, then anybody really is in contention to challenge on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, without question. Sorry, go for it, Adrian.
No, I was going to ask you, the Lowry stuff, John, looking at it, like, I mean, he's obviously had to ground it out yesterday and had a bird's eye view of the brilliance of Rose, obviously. But is the Lowry stuff, given he doesn't have an amazing record around there, is it patriotic, or is there a chance that he could actually really be in the mix and that he can reel Rose in and be in the mix come Sunday?
Morning, Adrian. Well, he spoke for the first time after his round that he'd never really seen Augusta like this before. And we've had a lot of soft Masters with rain in the time of the year and soft course, and even like last November had no comparison to what we saw yesterday. Even though they can dry out the greens with the sub-air systems underneath the greens, nothing beats a good weather forecast. So I think Shane Lowry, first of all, he's got the confidence of winning at Portrush. He's a completely changed golfer now. The scars of Oakmont are well healed. Therefore, because he's got such a natural short game and a brilliant wedge game around those greens, he always should be in the conversation at Augusta. But the fact that he's driving the ball well now and he has that major championship victory, I think takes a weight off his shoulders. And even yesterday when he was messing up on certain holes, like the 10th where he had a double and the 15th where he chipped it into the water from the back of the green, there was an easiness, there was a lightness to his patter and his conversation with his caddy Bo, and he seemed to be taking the stride. And also I really like the fact that he rallied well with a birdie on 16, with a birdie on 18. To me, Shane Lowry might not win, but I think he can definitely be in the top 10 this week. And I think the only way I see Shane Lowry going is forward. If he can just eliminate the silly mistakes and play the way he's been playing, because he seems to have found something. He wasn't happy with his putting the first few months of the year, but he seems to have found something there. And I think Shane Lowry can definitely be a part of the conversation.
Can we talk about the Grand National, John, tomorrow, 5:15? What are we looking at here?
Well, hopefully an Irish winner. That's the first thing. Always great to see an Irish winner. I remember the days, it was 24 years went between 75 and 99 when there wasn't any Irish trained winner of the Grand National. The world's most famous steeplechase. Over 500 million people watched it around the world in 140 countries. That's the sell, but it is a great spectacle. I love watching the race, and 4 miles, 2 furlongs, 30 fences, all those famous fences, Beecher's Brook, the chair, the drama of the race. It's a safer race these days, which is good. So the horses, you would hope, will all come back safe and sound to their stables. We have got a hot favourite called Cloth Cap, ridden by Tom Scudamore for John Joe O'Neill, trained in England. Won one of the big trials, the Hennessy Gold Cup, as it was known, now the Ladbrokes Chase back in Newbury in the autumn. Has been third in the Scottish Grand National. Is uncomplicated. It goes out in front, jumps well, will like the ground, has got a nice low weight. But there's a couple of Irish stories. Rachel Blackmore bidding after her amazing Cheltenham to become the first woman to ride the winner of the race. She's on a horse called Minetta Times for Henry de Bromhead. That horse will have a chance because he's got a low weight. Comes into the race after a couple of second places at Leopardstown. And then Patrick Mullins, with Paul Townend injured, rides the main hope for his father Willie stable in Burrow Saint, who won the Irish Grand National a couple of years ago. So he is a staying chaser, and Burrow Saint is under 11 stone in the weights. Look, it's 40 runners. It's a cavalry charge. We all know what it's like. You can have any kind of luck in the Grand National. The first ever Grand National was won by a horse called Lottery, which I think sometimes sums it up. But I do think there are definitely patterns you can follow to try and pinpoint a winner, and that's what I'm going to be trying to do over the next 24 hours to redeem myself in the eyes of the public and the worldwide followers of John Duggan, who backed Patrick Cantley yesterday, who's now 7 over par at the Masters.
Luckily, virtual insanity is more than just one tip, John.
It is, and we have Larry at 125 to 1. We have Ram in there. We have Fitzpatrick and Casey. And we did a very good day at entry yesterday. An 11 to 1 winner and a 4 to 1 winner and 2 seconds. So it's not all bad. But Patrick Cantlay is a major embarrassment, as anybody who has looked at my Twitter account would know.
You're telling me that horses are more reliable than the professional golfers of the world?
Today they are. But next week there'll probably be some weird, I call them weird golfers. It'd be like weird names and weird prices. 300 to 1 shot that I spotted doing something in a tournament 25 years ago, and now it's just turned up at 1 next week in the Heritage in South Carolina. That's what I'll be hanging my hopes on next Wednesday. But right now, I can't escape the fact that I'm in this prison of the fact that I tipped Patrick Cantlay and hoping that Larry and Ram will get in the top 8 of the Augusta. But these are the self-inflicted woes of somebody who's in this bubble, which obviously you guys who live in the real world are not.
Do we have a tip for the Grand National?
I like Burrows Saint in my prediction of the year. You remember that conversation we had around January on when I tipped Kerry to win the All-Ireland football, and I tipped Man City to win the Champions League. I did tip Burrows Saint to 20 to 1. He's now 10 to 1 each way. I think he's got a good chance. There is one outsider I can't get my head out of called Mr. Monarchy at 33 to 1. Sounds like something like Joe Biden would say, but Mr. Malarkey is 33 to 1. I'll probably change my mind between now and tomorrow, but I do guarantee you that anything that goes up on OTBSports.com is the final answer for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Grand National Edition.
Nice one, John. Well, best of luck, better luck for the next 3 days at Augusta, and good luck tomorrow.
Oh, and Adrian, have a nice weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a million. John Duggan there on the line. It is 8:41 on this Friday morning. OTB AM is live every morning from 7:30 in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Now, if you missed a show live any morning, you can catch it back on the OTB AM podcast, which will be up just after 10 o'clock every single morning. And we timestamp it as well, so you can skip through to whatever part you want to listen to. You can just search for OTB AM and click subscribe. We're going to be joined by Alan Quinlan very shortly. But just to run you through some of the back pages again, a reminder of what's been happening. The Herald. GAA bans are null and void. McEnany and Farrell punishment won't be decided by county boards. A little bit of a strange timeline in all of this, because it does seem that the GAA have decided that they will give the 12-week ban to Dublin, so they haven't upheld that ban. They've given their own 12-week ban to Dublin. Like, it is strange, the rules, actually. I was going to go through this earlier on, and we were kind of squeezed for time. The rules that people have been pinged on, like, for example, Down had committed an infraction under Rule 7.2E of the GAA rulebook. I presume it's the same rules that are being applied here in this case, which relates to misconduct considered to have discredited the association. It is a fairly vague term. The penalties for a member include a minimum 8-week suspension, debarment and expulsion from the association may also be considered. So it goes from 8 weeks to complete expulsion from the association. Wildly differing things here that you could possibly hand down. Like the minimum of 8 weeks is essentially what was given in the Down case, wasn't it? In the end, and then obviously Cork are given a ban, and you'd expect the Monaghan situation to also be met with a 12-week ban from the GAA when they get around to it. But it looks like Dessie Farrell is going to get that 12-week ban officially from Croke Park. The Guardian. Watch out, Dad. McIlroy hits father with ball in tough Masters opener. The London Times leads with a photograph of a disappointed Rory McIlroy as well. Wayward McIlroy hits own dad. Sorry, Dad is the caption on the back of the Irish Daily Mail. Photograph there of a wincing McIlroy. And capital cost, Dublin's home advantage is league gone. The Mirror. This must end now. Cop captain launches campaign to stamp out racist abuse on social media. The Irish Sun goes with rash and trash. United put 1 foot in semis as Gunners hit by late soccer punch. The Irish Daily Star is from dad to worse. And then the Irish Independent go with the GAA poised to examine bans imposed by county board, and Leinster set to call upon Fardy for huge clash against Exeter. And it is on that note I can say good morning to Alan Quinlan. How are you?
I'm good all now, and yourself?
All good. That news about Scott Fardy getting the nod ahead of Ryan Baird, is that something that surprises you? I guess experience is a necessary facet when you're going to England, a place that Leinster haven't got an amazing record of in Heineken Cup quarterfinals and knockout games.
No, it doesn't surprise me. I think Fardy is your ideal candidate going playing a game like this coming up against Johnny Hill in the second row for them, and Johnny Gray, two very experienced and very physical players for Exeter. I think it's that forward battle that probably would dictated this decision to bring Scott Fardy in for his experience. Obviously, Ryan Baird is a super athlete and a brilliant player, but it's just that experience and know-how from Fardy. He's very good in those tight exchanges. He stops the momentum and flow of the opposition, gets into places, frustrates them, gets his hands on the ball, scrags players, all that kind of stuff. And he's very, very good at that. And he's an intelligence around what he's trying to do in those close encounters, particularly against a team like Exeter. I think it's a good call, and it's the right call to bring him back in there.
How do Exeter get at Leinster tomorrow, Alan? They obviously came quite close in that meeting in 2017, and it's been a while since, but it seems that they've got a hell of a lot better since then even. So this is going to be a massive challenge for Leinster.
Yeah, and you go back a couple of weeks ago to Munster-Leinster, where everybody was kind of predicting and saying that Munster would possibly win the game, go very close. I always thought before that game, when you think about Leinster, and there's no rocket science to it, if Leinster get their flow and the continuity going, they're really good at keeping the ball, the control of tempo and the pace, and they just wear teams down. I think if you go back to that game in 2017, when they played them in the pool stages, it was close to 30, 35 phases. I think Jack Conan scored a try eventually for Leinster. So Leinster can do it a number of different ways. They're strong mentally, physically. They have a ruthless edge to them, and they're a team that, I suppose, bar Saracens, nobody has, got close to bullying them or physically out-muscling them in the last number of years in their successful run. So you look at the Exeter team and you think this is a team that probably can do that. And if they're to have any chance in the game, they do the simple things so well. They're very direct. Their set piece is good. And, you analyse Exeter and they just try to out-muscle teams, and they're very, very good up front and a tight-knit unit. So if they're to disturb Leinster or stop Leinster, obviously they've got to hold on to the ball themselves and be really physical with them up front, because I think that's where that template and foundation. I don't think Exeter's backline is as good as Leinster's. They don't have any superstars. Joe Simmons is their captain at fly half. He's a very good player, but he's not an international quality player. I don't think he's probably close enough to be in there and a very solid player. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but they workhorses throughout the team. And, Henry Slade, probably he's the one with the silky skills at 13 if he gets enough of ball. But they rely on being very, very direct, forward orientated, and if they're to unsettle Leinster, it's going to happen up front, and that's where they've got to do it.
Andy Friend was on the show with us yesterday, and he said that you can't win an arm wrestle when your opponent has bigger arms, and that was to do with the power that maybe Connacht came up against last weekend in the Challenge Cup, and that he feels that Irish provinces come up against when they play Premiership and top 14 teams. Are Leinster an exception to that they don't necessarily...
They are an exception to that, and they've proven that over a number of years that, it's their collective cohesion up front. And just look at the front row. Ronan Keller is now an international, has big moments around the field. He's a very physical player. He's very, very skillful. Keane Healy, Tyke Furlong, top-class international players who have been up against, they've been up against the best in their careers. So they won't be daunted or physically step away from that challenge that they're going to get. They'll know about it. And they'll kind of revel in that opportunity to show their quality. Fardy and Toner in the second row, loads of experience there and quality. And then that back row looks very, very balanced. Rhys Ruddock is a very powerful physical player. His work rate is through the roof. He was brilliant the last time they played against Munster. Jack Conan has found form at the right time, and Josh van der Fleer is an international as well. So what Andy Friend says is right. Sometimes you do get overpowered, but Leinster the exception of the Irish provinces. I think Munster are probably the next one, because I think they went to Exeter 2 years ago and they got a draw over there. I think it was a draw that game, and they were brilliant. They physically tore into Exeter up front and stopped them in horrendous conditions, and they were capable of doing that. But Leinster, such a tight-knit unit, and that front row offers so much around the field that they can do that against the best teams, and that's why they're one of the favourites for this Champions Cup.
Brian O'Driscoll was on with us last night, Quinny, and he was talking about reflecting on Munster's last couple of weeks and what's gone wrong for them, and maybe that they're not a million miles off, but he was specifically talking about the tight five as the Achilles heel. And I'm just interested now, listening to you, and maybe you haven't been thinking that deeply about it, but your response to Leinster's strength was to name check the tight five, was your first comment there. Is that the standout difference between Leinster and Munster at the minute?
Yeah, I think it sounds kind of boring that you're picking players up front and props and hookers that kind of dictate the way the game goes. But I love to play the game, an open game, run around, pass the ball, and not have a kind of a forward orientated game. Of course I enjoy the physical exchanges, but this will never change, Adrian. If you don't have a front eight of players who set the foundation for you and get your set piece, scrum, line out right, you're going to struggle no matter what kind of a back line you have. The game has changed in the last number of years, where traditionally front row players and second rows, you kind of keep them away from the ball in open play. But now, with the skill sets of that tight five, I think, and the need to probably go into, high number of phases when you're in attack. Everybody needs to improve their skills and have improved their skills. And it's the ball playing ability of Furlong and Kelleher and Healy, and their ability to give a pass at the right time, to offload, not just to tuck the ball under the arm and try and run out over people. Of course, they're very important in doing that when defences are set and there's a strong defence against you. But the game has changed a lot now, and there's a huge shift in emphasis on, the skills of that tight five and what they can do, how they can catch that.
Given that, Alan, and given some of the attributes that you've mentioned in relation to the Leinster players, how far off are that Munster group, and maybe even more so, are the players there at some of the players that have come off the bench, and that do they have the playing staff in that tight five to match up to Leinster?
Well, look, on a given day, if they get it right, yes, they have. But look, at the top level of finals, which is proved 2 weeks ago, and the quarterfinal last week. You look at Marchand and Fáil Moina, what they did last week, and Cyril Boyd. They're all international players. It's what they're doing around the field, adding to the scrum and the line-out. So for Munster, I think, on their day, if they get it right, John Ryan, Stephen Archer, they've been great players. Niall Scannell is a good carrier, but they're still off the top teams and what their front rows and second rows are doing. So they're still a little bit off that, and that's a reality. So you have to find different ways then of attacking and getting the ball to your back line. But sometimes it comes down to
are they almost, sorry to cut across, Sean, are they almost hamstrung before they begin unless they
a little bit you can't
or new player? Yeah.
There's no magic wand here, and a lot of people are questioning why they signed Jenkins, the second row, stroke back row. We've been told he's going to play in the back row. They're not allowed to go out and sign a new tight head or a new hooker because they're Irish qualified players there. John Ryan, Stephen Archer are coming, towards the end of their career, and then you've got Kenyon Knox and Roman Salanoa, who are both Irish qualified as well. So if you bring in a tight head here and spend $400,000 or $500,000 a year on an international tight head to shore up or to improve a position, it's not going to be allowed. So they've got to work with what they have, and they've got to develop the two younger players to try and get them through and try and bring through more hookers. So it seems to be an area now that is of concern to Munster. But it's always been a challenge, Adrian, to bring through hookers and props. they don't just kind of fall off trees. It has to be a long-term development plan, and it's certainly an area where Munster, you know, when we played with John Hayes in Munster, if John Hayes didn't play or was injured for a period of time or out of the Irish team, there was a nervousness and a worry and a fear about the players who were below him because of what he was able to do around the field. So real pivotal positions, and Munster are a little bit short there in that international quality, and that's why Leinster are so good in that. And that's why they can play the game, because they balance and depth in so many different positions. So they're in a good place as regards their playing profile and players they have.
Yeah, it's definitely a reason that Hayes and Furlong more recently have been cited as been like some of the most important players in the Irish setup at the minute. Before we leave Leinster, are they? We talk about the arm wrestle, two equally matched teams in a lot of different ways. Who's going to win the arm wrestle the weekend?
I think the concern is, and maybe it can work for and against. Leinster didn't play last weekend, so they're obviously going to be physically fresh. Maybe it was time for Leo Cullen's players just to re-energise. A lot of the guys, their players would have been involved in the internationals and along Six Nations. So as long as they don't dwell on what happened between Leinster and Munster and expect it to happen, that's the only danger, is themselves really. And they've proven time and time again that psychologically they can get it right, emotionally they can get it right. And certainly Exeter being European champions and Premiership champions will focus the mind. So I think Exeter will be better. You know, they conceded 2 early tries last week, but then it was just brute force with their forwards. They just blew Leon away and scored 47 points and 7 tries in that game. So they're a very, very, and obviously they're champions now, and that gives an air of confidence to a team. So it's a very hard one to call, but I just fancy Leinster because of their overall balance of their team. They're missing Ringrose and James Ryan, they could be significant. They're 2 big losses. But I think they're good enough to get the job done and may do so. But don't be any bit surprised if Exeter win this game or go very, very close to beating Leinster, because it's a real serious challenge for them.
For sure. The one other rugby story from the week, Alan, that we haven't spoken to you yet because there was no Monday show this week, was the aspect of Munster potentially losing Stephen Larkham, that there's a link to Australia, obviously, since Rob Penny's left the Waratahs. Is this something you'd be concerned about?
Yeah, I think, look, he's, that's the last thing they need now is another unsettling situation in Munster after the disappointment of the last 2 weeks, because I think they have made progress this year. Their attack has improved. They still have some way to go on that, the overall attack of the team. And I think that, it takes a little bit of time for coaches to implement change. And it would be a shame now if Stephen Larkham went. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened, because obviously when you're a long way from home and you're on the other side of the world and you get linked with a job back in your home country, it's a big job. The Waratahs are a big franchise there. And if he's been linked with that job and it's true, I'm sure he'll have to consider it. And it would be a shame if he went at this stage.
Just to wrap up then, a couple of the other fixtures across the weekend, and it's quite a weekend of rugby. You've got Claremont against Toulouse on Sunday at 3 o'clock, Bordeaux against Racing on Sunday at 12:30, but tomorrow at 3 o'clock then, La Rochelle against Sale. Do you see Ronan O'Gara getting his hands on another Heineken Cup?
It just depends what's happening in the semi-final. If they get there, it's an open draw, so home advantage and where those semi-finals are going to be is going to be significant for teams that in the last 4. Sale are going to be a tough proposition tomorrow. I think they blew Scarlets away last week, and they have an edge to them and an aggressiveness to them and some really top quality players. So I don't think I was talking to him during the week. He's not going to underestimate Sale in any way. That's a real test for him. And I think, they showed last week against Gloucester that they love to play with pace and tempo, and their attack is very good, and there's some brilliant players, but getting a performance that's right and getting the mentality right is the challenge for them tomorrow against, I suppose, a little bit of an unknown entity in Sale. They are third in the Premiership, and they've improved a lot in the last probably 2 to 3 years, because they've signed a lot of top quality players. There's a lot of South Africans there. There's a real physical edge to them. So it's an interesting one and a tough challenge for Ronan O'Gara. I think if he can get the mentality of these players right this week, they should get to a semi-final, but it's not going to be easy. And as I said, it's just about the draw and then the semi-finals, whether Leinster get there or La Rochelle or, Mike Prendergast with Racing. You'd be hoping for a favourable draw there. But the game I'm looking forward to is Sunday, really. I think it just kind of whets the appetite. Clermont-Toulouse, that should be a real cracker. Clermont probably were lucky to get through against Wasps last weekend, and Toulouse showed their quality. So that'll be a really interesting one on Sunday. So there is other Irish involvement with Prendy and Rog, and obviously Leinster with that big challenge on Saturday evening.
Yeah, for sure. And Ulster obviously up against Northampton tomorrow evening as well. Alan, sorry, go for it, Adrian.
Sorry, Owen, just before we let you go, Quinlan, what's the Munster view of your ascending order of teams you want to win this thing? Ronan O'Gara's La Rochelle, Mike Prendergast's Racing, all the French teams, Sale and Leinster, is that it?
And Leinster at the bottom, is it?
Yeah.
No, you're not putting me on the spot now with that. Who do I want to win? The best team will win it, and Leinster are probably the best team. Obviously, Racing. I'd love to see Prendy do well with Racing and Rog with La Rochelle as well. But no, I'd be hoping that Leinster do well the whole thing.
Alan, thanks a million. Enjoy the weekend's rugby.
Sure, lads.
Alan Quinlan there on the line. It is 9:01 on this Friday morning. Here's what we've got on OTB Sports Radio today. From 1:30 as ever on a Friday afternoon, we have got the Paddy Power half hour looking ahead to the Premier League weekend. From 3 o'clock is live Friday night racing ahead of the Grand National. 4 o'clock then is a Team 33 Legends interview with Owen Heary. And then from 6 p.m. this evening, OTB Gold featuring one Lance Armstrong. And then on your radio tonight from 7 o'clock, Off the Ball is live. And then from 9 o'clock, Team 33 is live as well. We're going to be hearing from Brian O'Driscoll before 10 o'clock this morning here on OTB AM. There's a special Masters crappy quiz. And up next is Friday morning on OTB AM. We're talking with one of the contestants of that crappy quiz, Joe Molloy.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
And I was looking to find out what England were complaining about. And I suggested that it might have been offside. And then I realised, for goodness sake, it was a mistake by the defender that played the ball to Shilton and Maradona. I said it was pure football genius, because the contrast between the two moments. I mean, in one, he was absolutely a cheat, and the next moment, he was absolutely world class.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
What are we going to expect from Ireland this weekend?
Set piece, like everything revolves around our set piece. So I take it we're going to have Aoife McDermott in the second row, and I would say more than likely Nicola Friday as well. Two good second rows. A little bit worrying that there's no one in behind them. We got a few injuries there, but set piece, like if we can dominate the line out. Wales are not tall, so I fully expect us to win absolutely everything, including a lot of their ball. If we can just get our set piece right. For especially the first 20 minutes, we always love a good maul. Absolutely. Get into the field position, hopefully, and I hope Hannah Tyrrell's playing 10. There's been way too much change in that position for my liking. Let's stick with Hannah. I thought she did very well the last time in the outing in November. So let's hopefully stick with her. She's got a decent boot on her. Let's play just field position for the first half an hour. Bring in the maul a little bit. Work off our set piece, and then let's just, when it's right, let's just play that wide. Let's play that 13 channel all day long. Let's see these fantastic players, Considine, Enya Breen, possibly Aoife Higgins, I think will actually hopefully come in. Let's see what she's made of. Hopefully she'll come in at some stage. And obviously Bevan Parsons, like, it's too good a back three no matter what combination you have, not to play the 13 channel. So let the forwards do the rump, and then let's play wide.
Tom Watson, you're welcome to Golf Weekly.
Hey, this is going to be fun.
Very happy to say European captain and, of course, three-time major winner Padraig Carrington joins us.
Today's special guest on Golf Weekly is Lee Westwood.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm honoured and delighted.
Let's bring in Paul McGinley, who joins us now. Paul, you're very welcome.
Shane Lowry, how are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks, yeah. Well, I'm as good as I can be.
The biggest names in golf and Ireland's best golf podcast, Golf Weekly, now exclusively available on Patreon. Go to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly to sign up now.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, browse through dozens of new player markets, all powered by Opta. Shots on target, left foot, right foot, headed goals, assists, and more. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
You're welcome back. It is 9:05. You'll have heard before the ads there Louise Galvin and Philip Doyle with Valerie Wheeler on our Women's Six Nations preview show, which is available on our social channels and it's going to be back next Thursday at 1 o'clock. You can catch the Wales Ireland preview on the OTB Podcast Network or on our YouTube channel right now. Right, we are turning our attention to golf because we are a day into the 2021 Masters, and where better to stay on top of it all than with Golf Weekly. If you sign up now, you'll be able to check out all the build up to the tournament, get access to the exclusive Discord channel, and also get access to Sunday's watch along party, where they'll be joined by Conor Moore and on tour pro Troy Merritt. And if that wasn't enough, they'd also have a special Monday review pod. That's all over on the Golf Weekly Patreon account. You can get that on otbsports.com/Golf Weekly. Joe Molloy, good morning.
Jens, how are we? How you doing?
All good. How big is this a chance for Justin Rose now to pull away from the field and make your watch-along party on Sunday a bit of a procession?
Pretty big chance, I think. Pretty big chance. Kind of nuts, wasn't it? He was doing nothing. He was doing nothing until the 8th par 5, and he got the jammiest of bounces, which set him up for eagle, and then he took off, and it was extraordinary then. I mean, I don't think anybody thought there was a 65 out there. I thought 3 under was a really good score. I think we only have 3 players in the 60s. So for Rose to go into that beast mode caught everyone unawares. And yes, it was some play. I know John was on mentioning Rose had a strange couple of years. He was world number 1 and he was major winner, won the US Open, and he won the Olympics, as he likes to mention, every 30 seconds approximately. And then he did a strange thing. He fired his coach. I guess that happens. And he also switched equipment. He went to Honma, this Japanese manufacturing company who make incredibly expensive equipment. Like if you and I were to buy some Honma clubs, we'd be talking thousands and thousands and thousands. So that was a strange thing to do. Like changing clubs is always like a lot of trepidation to be applied. And he went off a cliff. Now he was getting gazillions, obviously, from Honma. But even after about a year, he just had to call halt. He had to fight a way out of the deal. He got out of the deal. I'm not sure what settlement was reached. He went back to certainly TaylorMade driver. He'd been with TaylorMade for like 20 years. I think he's Mizuno irons now. So he's got a mix in the bag now. And he rehired Sean Foley. But still nobody saw this coming. And John mentioned he's been out for the last month with injury and just working very, very hard with Sean Foley. And he said in his interview last night that he asked Foley this week, where do you think I am? And Foley said, I don't really know. I know you're better. It's definitely better than you've been, but I've no idea where you are. And I think they were both very pleasantly surprised to see 7 bloody under. I mean, it was extraordinary stuff, yeah.
He didn't really seem to know how to put a finger on it himself in his interview with Sky afterwards. He was just like, I was in a flow state. And that can be a frustrating thing to listen to as somebody who analyses golf, I imagine, because you can't put your finger on what did Justin Rose actually do.
But like Justin Rose, I know what you mean, yeah, for sure. But he's just he is an amazing player. Yeah. I mean, he's an amazing player, and he's less artistic and he's more in the conventional, polished type, you know. So, but he's been a major winner, world number 1, as I said. The amazing thing about golf is they're all so good and the margins are so fine that if any of them gets into that state, whereas he said himself, I don't really know what happened, you know, it just kind of came out of me kind of thing. If any of them gets into that state, they're very hard to catch. In a way, actually, it shows how ridiculous Tiger Woods was, because the margins are just, as I said, incredibly minute and fine. And if you're a tiny bit off, the odds are someone's going to catch fire. It was actually extraordinary. Woods managed to hold them all off for so many tournaments. But, I mean, look, to your initial question, do you catch flow and get into that state for the next 3 days and pressure and sleeping on leads and you haven't played in a long time? I would lean odds are he comes back. I would lean that way. I think that's a hell of a standard to set now and maintain. But this isn't a rookie in that position either, so there's definitely a chance he could hit the accelerator.
Yeah, he's got an Olympic medal, Joe. I mean, this is far from...
Did you know he does? He's an Olympic champion, Owen. Yeah, oh, geez, I mean, no, he's a nice fella, but I just don't want just to win this wire to wire.
To be fair, he's not alone. Like, they listened to the commentary last night. Bloody hell! I mean, you're talking about every 30 seconds. Like on Olympic performance from just come on, lads. The other thing about like analysing golf tournaments, particularly majors, obviously after day one, everybody looks like a mug come Sunday evening, where it's like, you know, Justin Rose leading after day one becomes a do you remember it was after day one he blitzed. He has the capacity to do that, but he becomes an after story. And particularly when the pressure comes on, Joe, I'm interested in your thoughts on that. Like, given some of the tournaments he's won, the age profile and the experience and that kind of stuff, when the pressure comes on, is he the sort of player that can withstand that around a course like Augusta?
Yeah, he would be. He has the pedigree. Like, he can definitely ruin this for us all. Be under no illusions. He can make this a miserable few days and take off. Absolutely. There's no guarantee he'll come back. But there's a question mark.
Can we talk about Shane Lowry for a bit, Joe? Well, like, surely it's impossible not to take off the green tinted glasses when you see Shane Lowry do well. Maybe it's possible with every other Irish golfer, but it's not really possible when it comes to Lowry. You're rooting for him when you watch him last night, and the way he managed to bring that round back under par with birdies on 16, wasn't it, and on 18 was just brilliant to watch.
Yeah, it was really good. What about that chip on 15? It was insane. I just... Like, he'd had a bit of luck earlier on where he had rifled a putt which was really travelling and it rocketed into the hole. And, you know, he kind of put his hand up to his mouth as if to say, I've got away with one there. And Rose was kind of laughing at him. So, look, it goes in roundabouts. But if anyone didn't see the chip on 15, I mean, the course really was the story yesterday in some ways. It was so firm. It was so fast. It was very scary. And, like, Augusta's full of subtleties so, like, 15 gave them a terrible choice because the pin was at the front. Like, only Cameron Smith, he was the only player who, like, landed it on that pin. You couldn't take a chance going short with your second. Equally, because the pin was on the front, laying up, that's a really tricky shot. If the pin was at the back, then laying up becomes an easier option and you can wedge it on and maybe get close. But if you lay up with your third, you're not going to get close to that pin. So you say, fair enough, we'll go over the back. Over the back is the safe play. You know, let's hard to the green, and there's no stopping that ball when it's that firm and you've got a long iron. So we saw a lot of chips from that there, including Jordan Spieth. And so that's where, like, the course was presenting no good options because that chip, as you saw, was treacherous. And Lowry's chip was brilliant, and it just kept trickling and trickling and trickling. Like, it took about a minute for the ball to go in the hole. Could have gone to the toilet and come back. And then his second chip there, I mean, Adrian, I don't know if you know this about Larry, but he has great soft hands around the green. And,
what he has, Joe, in fact, is a wonderful shot maker. Everything done by feel and imagination is what turns out soft hands has turned into, according to the commentators last night.
There's a lot of drinking games we could play. But his second shot in 15 on was remarkable. Like, because I was watching it here and I was saying, like, how do you play that same shot again after you've seen what's just happened? Like, you can't hit it any softer, you know? And, man, he hit it dead, which did show steel and his quality and all the rest. And as you said, he came back with a few more birdies. So, look, who knows? He's in the mix. I mean, at this stage, it's really hard to make predictions because how can you predict? You know, you look at last night. The Jordan Spieth chip in is like a 3-shot swing. The Lowry chip in, complete, you know, scuppers his round massively. It's really like... the margins out there are just so insane. We're expecting a bit of rain. I think yesterday could have been the most firm fast. I think they knew there's a bit of rain coming in, and they also wanted to remind everyone what Augusta's about. So they really went for it yesterday. Like, the greens were practically brown in places. So it was just so God, like, I loved watching it. Like, for me, that was... I don't love the leaderboard. We can come to that. I don't love the leaderboard. But for me, that was major golf at its best in many ways, because it was so difficult. Like, even the 5-footers and 4-footers were treacherous, and we saw a lot of guys miss them. You had to have... I'm looking over at you, Bryson. You had to have control of your ball to play the course like that yesterday. It was amazing kind of viewing. That was top drawer stuff. Anyone who did well yesterday was playing extraordinary golf.
Well, keep going down that vein on Bryson, because that is the interesting one. When we maybe had thought that Bryson DeChambeau was going to show up and conquer Augusta, I'm sure everybody who is a traditionalist is waking up quietly happy this morning, thinking, there's life in this game yet, there's life in this course yet, that even Bryson comes up looking like a fool.
Yeah, he was horrific. Did you watch much last night? Did you get to see much last night?
Yeah.
He was, he
awful.
I was saying to you guys yesterday that in a way you had to discount November in terms of does his strategy work, because he was so bad in November. He never actually road tested his strategy because he was just like snap hooking it all the time. I think he might have been worse yesterday. Like, from minute one, he couldn't keep the driver straight. This new driver that, as Shane mentioned to us yesterday, he was so excited about all week, his secret club. Oh my God. He's such a doofus sometimes. So his secret club. So, like, every time you look at him, the first couple of holes he's in the trees, he turns to the driver when he, yet again, I mean, he kept putting it right on 11, where he swipes it way right, and he turns to his caddy and says the club isn't doing what it should be doing. And Butch Harmon was laughing, going, pretty sure it is. Like, it's an inanimate object. It could be you, Bryson. And then... I don't know how many greens. I mean, so the next hole, the 12th, he goes long. He got so lucky on 12. He bounces out of the flower beds. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. He seemed... So his driver was a mess. And then with his irons, he seemed to overshoot every green. Every single green he seemed to go long on. Like 18, he went long on. Everything he went long on. So he was all over the shop. He had no control of his ball. I mean... He really was in form 3-4 weeks ago with his swing. Maybe these lines he's trying to take off the tee don't suit him. Maybe at Augusta, these crazy lines he's trying to take, the way we hear all the time that certain shots suit the eye of certain golfers and certain shapes that they see before them from the tee box suit them. Maybe what he's trying to do here really doesn't suit him. Maybe he'd be better off in the years to come to say, well, I'm long enough that I can take a 3-wood off every tee and just be in the fairway and play from there. But, like, his irons were terrible, so even being in the fairway, he was no good. So it was disastrous. Like, it was kind of an embarrassing performance. And there was one other thing to say. Oh yeah, like, Butch Harmon did make the point at the start of the week, for all this talk of Bryson overpowering Augusta, like, on the par 5s for a start, that is negligible, because everybody can reach the par 5s in 2. So, like, this business that he has this massive advantage over the field because of distance. So straight away on the par 5s, everybody, who's going to be contending is going to reach those par 5s in 2. So straight away, that's not that big an advantage. Okay, he might have a club less or 2, but it's not like he's, it's playing against a bunch of amateurs who can't get there in 2, and what he's doing is, wow, amazing. I mean, they all reach those par 5s in 2. So straight away... I think Butch was onto something. Butch discounted him early in the week, and I didn't. And I thought he'd be better. I thought he'd be sharper. I thought his irons would be dialed in. Horrific performance. Like, he's gone. It's not happening.
There's a reason that Fred Couples and Bernard Langer are sometimes in the mix of these tournaments sort of halfway through, I guess. It's probably a point. Just one last one, just on Lowry for me, just very briefly, Joe, just because I want assurances from you essentially now here that I'm going to have some good entertainment come Sunday night. The second shot course aspect of the Masters that you were talking about in Golf Weekly during the week, and how that cliches notwithstanding suits Lowry, and as much as you can, using that to gaze into your crystal ball about his prospects today and into the weekend.
I mean, I'd be surprised if he won. I'd be surprised if he won. Yeah.
Why?
It's quite a long way back. I still think he's getting to grips a bit with Augusta. I think the recent form bar, Sawgrass, hasn't been amazing. So I think when pressure comes on, that'll be an extra little test for him. I mean, we could be talking here on Sunday about how, Justin Rose went into state of flow on Thursday and Shane Lowry got into state of flow Sunday. So it could happen. It could happen.
I guess it comes back to that Saturday performance at Portrush. Can he do that on a day here in Augusta? That sort of blood blowing out the field, which maybe remains to be seen. We've got a minute left, Joe, but we'll have plenty of minutes to talk about Rory McIlroy in the future. So I'm not sure what you want to say about Rory McIlroy in the space of 60 seconds here.
If anyone didn't see it, everything was off. The driver was iffy. The irons were really bad. He went into water twice, and the putter really let him down a few times. Lots of short putts, lots of kind of 6, 7, 8 footers didn't go in. And I would say when we were speaking at 7 o'clock last night, Adrian, on the radio, when he was at the 11th and had just gone into the water and would be about to go into the water at the 13th, the easiest hole on the course, the shoulders had slumped. I would have said incredibly dejected. And if we were in any doubts that when he says this is a long-term or a longer-term project, I think now, those words weigh a bit heavier. I think this is a proper old slump for him, which he will come out of eventually, but I'm not so sure it'll be as soon as we all think.
Yeah, it's disappointing to see, and I guess at least there's the slight comical element of his father getting hit by a golf ball, which is kind of, in a weird way, being something that's brought a smile to Rory McIlroy's face. Joe Molloy, great stuff. Enjoy the weekend's golf.
All right, boys, pleasure.
Thanks a million. Joe Molloy there, host of Golf Weekly, and you can go out and check Golf Weekly on Patreon right now. It promises to be a great weekend on their Discord channel. Still to come this week is their Sunday watch-along party, where they'll be joined by Conor Moore and on-tour pro Troy Merritt. And if that wasn't enough for you, they'll also have a special Monday review pod. That's all over on the Golf Weekly Patreon account. OTBsports.com/Golf Weekly is where you can go and check that out. So it is 21 minutes past 9 on this Friday morning. You're listening to OTB AM, brought to you in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. It is now time for a special Masters crappy quiz. Enjoy.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
That is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of team off the ball up against one another in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants for a special Masters edition of the crappy quiz. Our first contestant today is sick of being the butt of everyone's jokes on this slot, and with no Ger and no Nathan this week, he's planning on turning from the bullied into the bully. His fellow contestants are lucky lockdown is still in action, or they would find themselves with their heads flushed down a toilet or their school bag turned inside out. It is the fearsome, it's the lunch money stealing Adrian. Who's your daddy, Barry?
Don't know where to go after that. There are plenty of YouTube commenters who would say that I'm out of my depth most weeks on this quiz at home, but I really feel as if this week it's never been more appropriate. And I'm feeling if the answer is not either Bobby Jones or Magnolia Lane, I'm screwed.
You were reluctant to take part, but I applaud your bravery. You're going up against two golf nerds, which is a massive compliment to any golf nerd, to be honest, who we may as well introduce, because if you think Rory McIlroy has had it bad in his career, well then wait until you hear about our next contestant today. He's been to 12 Olympic Games, 40 World Cups, 72 Dakar rallies, and Cheltenham doesn't happen without him, but yet he has never set foot on Augusta National. He will look at Eisenhower Cabin and Amen Corner this weekend, but he knows that he can't touch. Sleeping in his favourite green jacket for the weekend, it is John Bon Duggan.
Thank you, Owen, Joe and Adrian. And I actually vowed that I would never spend $1 in Trump's America, and I would refuse even if I was offered a trip to go to Augusta in Trump's America. But gladly, he is now out of office, so I do have the freedom to go to spend $10,000 on walking the fairways of Augusta in 2022.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Off the Ball happens to get their hands on a press pass for next
Joe
year...
Molloy's getting it. Joe or Nathan, they'll have to get first dibs.
Well,
Patreon and everything.
I was just about to say, John, if only there was like a trivia way of weighing up who knows actually more about golf, and that way the press pass might go to that person. I don't know. We'll see. Our last contestant today is heard in the sting to this quiz every single week. His eternal words, "This is really annoying doing this quiz," resonates with every single person listening to us on a Friday. He may have a bag load of IMRO awards, but truly bringing respect to this slot would be his crowning broadcasting glory. Back after a long, long hiatus, it is no show like a Joe show, Molloy.
I do remember doing that quiz, and it was a disgrace.
Still part of the intro, Joe.
Yeah, I know. It was a disgrace that day.
I get a sense you wouldn't be a great childminder, like that was your profession.
No, I would be a good childminder. Adult minding, when they're behaving like children, less tolerance.
As ever, the format is the classic crappy quiz with a series of questions this week on the Masters. Then it's on to the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round, which is going to be a mix of Masters and non-Masters questions. You can podcast the crappy quiz on otbsports.com or on the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to click the thumbs up, even if you contribute nothing but misery to your day. Round 1 is the boring questions round, never multiple choice. These questions are all based on the Masters. Adrian, who was the first non-American to win the Masters?
Was Bobby Jones American? Do you guys know the answer? I mean,
yeah.
You do, okay. I know this is not correct, but I know he's not American, and I know he won the Masters, and I know it was probably like 40 years running before he won it, but I'm going to go with him anyway. Nick Faldo.
No, it's not Nick Faldo. Who is it, Joe?
Gary Player, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's Gary Player. 1961, the first non-American to win it. John, Dustin Johnson broke the Masters record of the lowest winning score ever when he finished up on 20 under par last year. The previous record was 18 under par, held by Tiger and which other golfer?
Jordan Spieth.
Correct. Ooh, that was
sharp.
Very, very quick. Sharp indeed. Joe, question 1 for you. Which is the longest hole at Augusta National?
Eighth?
It's not the 8th.
Second?
It's the 2nd.
Damn you.
Pink Dogwood is the longest hole.
So I see the questions are handicapped here.
Well, hang on a second now. I was just going to say the unfairness of that question. I mean, you had 1 in 18, and let's face it, like there were several holes that you knew it wasn't. So like a 1 in 3, 4 chance of getting it, whereas mine was like...
Have you heard of Gary Player?
The fittest 85-year-old on the planet.
I love it. I love it how it's kind of like, no, I would never be pushed into presenting the crappy quiz ever again because of the childmindy aspect. Within one question, Joe is like, screw this.
I'm starting to smell a rat so far. That's all I'm saying.
Well, this should be a gentleman's episode, surely. There's no slagging to be had here. This is everybody shake hands and, you know.
That's true.
Yeah. A few little sly digs if needs be, obviously, but... You know,
look, I'm watching you, Sheehan. Let's just carry on.
I fear this round 2 is going to be quite prescient. Round 2 is the Masters meltdown rounds. So whether it's the pressure of the baying mob of patrons or the allure of Rae's Creek, crazy things tend to happen on the final day of the Masters. And this round will test your knowledge on the bottle jobs and the meltdowns that will never be forgotten. Adrian, Greg Norman took a 6-stroke lead into the final day of the 1996 Masters, but who ended up winning it?
What did you say?
1996.
Faldo won it in 97. I'm adding Nick Faldo to my list of 3 things that I know about the Masters. Did he win it in 96 as well? Unlikely. Did he win it in 96 though? And that is the question.
This is painful to listen to.
I'm going to take that as it's not Nick Faldo then. Could it be Gary Player?
Is the answer Leinster, is it?
Well, it could be Bobby Jones. Let's face it. I'm bringing him into the mix here.
Adrian, believe in yourself. Give us an answer.
I'm going to go with Nick Faldo.
Correct.
Yes.
It is Nick Faldo.
Beauty.
That was a rope-a-dope, Adrian. Rope-a-dope.
Yeah, listen, I was thrown off the scent there, but, you know, like a Patrick Reed ball in the rough, I just kept at it kept poking at it.
It just upset me that 1997 is like the most famous one ever, with Tiger winning his first.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it was 97. He passed it over. Of course, if I'd have actually seen my logic out, I was right there.
You were, yeah. Look, who am I to talk? You're on 1, I'm on 0.
It is true. John, in what position did Rory McIlroy finish the 2011 Masters after his spectacular meltdown? This is a tough question now.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, this is one of these questions. It's very hard to get the answer. Tied 15th.
Oh, it's correct.
Jesus.
Back of the net.
Oof.
John Duggan.
Where did you pull that out of?
My parts of my brain that have not been influenced by alcohol.
That was good.
Lockdown
Again,
has
I
been
said
good.
it was like a roughly 1 in 20 chance of getting it right, but you know.
Joe, well, the dark cloud of misery, Adrian. Take your point and be happy with this round. Joe, John got a Spieth question in round 1. You're getting a Spieth question here. How many strokes did Jordan Spieth clock up during that infamous 12th hole at the 2016 Masters?
Oh, let me think. He was 5 shots clear. So he first one in the water. That's 1. Drop is 2. 3 is into the water again. Jordan, what are you doing? The drop is 4. Where the hell did he hit his 5th? See, I can't remember after that. I'm going to say he hit his 5th somewhere on the green, but didn't hold that. So that's 6. So he either made a 7 or an 8. 7 or an 8, 7 or an 8. I think he made a 7. Did you drop 4 shots?
Correct. 7.
Yes.
Well done.
Good.
That was an incredibly Nathan Murphy style response there, Joe.
I'll take that
cycling
as
through
a compliment.
I give you all the knowledge of stuff that's somewhat tangential to the actual question. I mean,
I wouldn't have said that was tangential, given that everything I mentioned added
that
up.
is fair. Typically with Murphy, it's far more tangential than that.
Yeah. Jordan Spieth, born, of course, in 1980.
Right,
Listen, we promised everyone at home a Masters expert round, and you all delivered in that round. 3 from 3. John, you're on 2. The other lads are on 1 going into round 3, which is the Masters Come Dine With Me round. A tradition unlike any other, generally starts with a champions dinner that is very like many others, but there have been a few occasions when the menus have been fairly class. I'm going to read you out a champions dinner menu here, and all you got to do is tell me which Masters champion set the menu.
Oh, for God's sake.
Adrian, which golfer went for, as a starter, chilled seafood bar, as his main, South African braai barbecue, and as dessert, vanilla sundaes? Did Joe say the questions are handicapped?
Go again. Chilled seafood bar. It's South African menu, is what we're saying.
Yeah, main is a South African braai barbecue. Is that how you pronounce BRAAI? And then for dessert, they went for vanilla sundaes.
Vanilla sundaes, would that have been a... I'm trying to think, like, would vanilla sundaes be like would all that be a 1960s, 70s thing, or would it be a 2000s thing?
I like your logic here. You're actually thinking about this in a deep way, are you?
Yeah. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna think like it's pretty bland. It sounds pretty bland. So I mean, 60s, 70s food would be a bit more. Was when we had that Kerry player conversation earlier in a way I can't remember what happened 2 minutes ago. Was that an answer to a question, or were we just spitballing about something else?
He was the first non-American winner.
Oh yes, it's not him. Trevor Immelman.
No, it's not Immelman, but it is more recent.
Schwartzel.
Yeah. Schwartzel went for that. Bit of a banana skin of a question, to be honest. John, which golfer went for, as his starter, mini cottage pies, as his main, a traditional Sunday roast, and as his dessert, an apple crumble?
Danny Willett.
Correct. John Duggan, 3 from 3.
That came up the other day. Bloody hell, Duggan.
That was. I'm sorry, John, but that was a 5-yard tap in.
Well, after the last question, which was absolutely stupendously, ridiculously hard, I think that deserved an easy one there.
That was voted, that Danny Willett meal, as the best by the Augusta kitchen down the years. They thought that was the best menu.
Have you decided?
Sorry, go for it, John.
Joe and Adrian and Owen, what would your Masters do?
Oof. Adrian's a classy dude in this
There'd be
respect.
there'd be a cheese board and a meat board somewhere along. A bit of Irish cheese going on. Bit of Irish charcuterie as well. I might just make that all three dishes.
Adrian, what was the last Leinster match you watched without a cheese board?
I try not to make a habit of it, Joe. That's
Dragons away. That's the only one.
Tough times, yeah.
Right, come on, hit me.
I actually thought this would be the best menu ever. So which golfer went for, as a starter, seafood coconut soup, as his main, Penang curry and a rack of lamb, and for his dessert, lychee sorbet? Now that is a Michelin star menu. Who went for it?
Not a clue. I was hoping you'd ask me the haggis one, which was Sandy Lyle. That was the one I was crying out for. Give me that again. Is there any discernible nationality there? Give me that.
So the starter was seafood coconut soup. The main was Penang curry, rack of lamb. And for dessert, it was lychee sorbet.
What's lychee?
Lychee.
Like a
little...
or is it lychee? No,
yeah. Well, I mean, they're like...
Sort of berries.
They're called like dragon's eyes. They're...
He used to get them in the test cases when I was in Dunstores. Checkout boy.
Right. There's no nationality jumping out to me there.
Oof.
Is there?
Oh, Adrian's identifying.
This would be a turn up for the books. I mean, I'm not getting any points either way, right? So.
Yeah. God, total guess then. It's kind of boring, isn't it?
Speak for yourself.
Lamb. I'd go for lamb.
Gonna need to push you for an answer here.
Yes, you are.
Someone really dull. Mike Weir.
Not Mike Weir. Adrian, what were you thinking?
Well, what I was thinking was because he's won so many of them and he has Asian connections and it's clearly an Asian menu. Tiger.
No,
VJ.
VJ, yeah.
VJ crossed my mind because of the coconut thing, but then I thought coconuts everywhere.
Yeah, VJ. So they're kind of considered to be three of the best meals: Schwartzels, Willets, and VJ by all accounts. But I accept that Joe Molloy's not having VJ's menu this morning. The scores are Joe 1, John 3, Adrian 1. As we move on to round 4.
Big lead to sleep on, John. Saturday night, you know.
It is. Yeah, it could be a choking now coming up. Like it'll be in the water soon.
Round 4 is the fun-free magic number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points.
Should we have a pen and paper for this, Home?
Yes.
Yeah, if you could have a pen and paper, that would be great. I'm going to state that we can only accept the answer that's then written on your paper, and I'm going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So,
hold on a second.
Yeah.
So from the vaults of my memory, you're going to read out a bunch of stuff. We write down our guess numbers and then add them all up at the end.
Yes.
Cool.
Well, yeah, exactly. As long as you just get that total on your sheet at the end, that's all I'm looking for.
And if you're too big, you're bust, are you?
If you're too big, you're bust. So you can play it safe. But if you get it back on, you get 3 points.
Stick to your good instincts.
1,700,000.
Right. So if you don't mind, give us the following number, which is based on the Masters. I've already given this one away, actually, the first one. The number of strokes under par Dustin Johnson finished last year's tournament, plus the number of years of age Tiger Woods was when he won the Masters in 97, plus the number of Masters tournaments won by Jack Nicklaus, plus the number of strokes over par Zach Johnson finished when he won the 2007 tournament. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So, the number of strokes under par DJ finished when he won last year's tournament, plus the age Tiger Woods was when he won the 1997 tournament, plus the number of Masters won by Jack Nicklaus, and then the number of strokes over par Zach Johnson finished when he won the 07 tournament. One of 3 winners to have won it over par, I think. All right, pens down. John, what have you got?
48.
48. Adrian?
43.
Joe?
48.
It is 48.
Oof.
Oh, they both held their nerve. They both get 3 points.
I was tempted, John. I was sure of everything except Woods. I thought he was 20 or 21. I was tempted to go 47 on the safe side, but then I thought Duggan's going to know, so I better.
Joe, you're brave.
Yeah, go for it.
Should they not split those points up on? That seems very
It does, yeah.
penal on me.
That's the sweetest part of this.
PJ finished last year's tournament 20 under par. Tiger was 21 when he won in 97. Masters won by Jack Nicklaus is 6. And Zach Johnson finished 1 over in 07. Right, on to the final. It is John 6, Joe 4, Adrian 1. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Jordan Spieths from the Jordan Belforts. It's a no team in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. There will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer for the same set of questions. So we're going to start with John. John, once you get one wrong, I'll move on to Joe. And Joe, once you get one wrong, I'll move on to Adrian. You keep answering questions until you get one wrong. And then if you get one wrong, you get deducted a point as well.
And don't be messing around there's no great long pauses here from either you get the answer in or Owen's going to be straight in moving you on.
This would be like Blackboard Jungle when it all fell apart. I'm still scarred about it.
No stalling. John Duggan, are you ready?
Yes.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Sergio Garcia beat which golfer in a playoff at the 2017
Justin Rose.
Masters? Correct. Name next season's jersey sponsor for Manchester United.
Pass.
Team viewer. Phil Mickelson has won the Masters how many times, Joe?
3.
Correct. Who are Allianz Football League Division 1 champions?
Mayo.
No, Kerry. What is the first hole on Amen Corner, Adrian?
The 12th.
No, the 11th. Who is top scorer in this season's Champions League so far, John?
Lewandowski.
No, Haaland. Name any of the 3 golfers who finished runner-up to Tiger in the 2019 Masters, Joe.
2019.
No.
Koepka.
But Koepka, correct. Name the FC Porto manager.
Pass.
Conceição. Which is the major that Bryce DeChambeau has already won, Adrian, and we were out of time.
Is that it?
He's won the
Gary Player
PGA.
No, he won the US Open. John, you finish on 5 points. Joe, you finish on 4 points. It was close. Porto manager let you down. You got to Koepka just in the end, but John Duggan, by the skin of your teeth, you are the crappy quiz master champion for 2021.
5 under par, but all I want to say is that I'll be treating you all to the Masters dinner next year.
The non-golf questions really threw. I mean, not that I was involved in any deep throw, but I was like, what?
I can't remember Kerry winning the league.
Yeah, neither can they. I think it's.
remember Mayo winning. Did the league happen? It didn't happen last year.
It did, yeah.
They won it one-off match.
Yeah, there was no final. They just got the trophy and then walked home with it. So,
for God's sake.
Yeah, and we all know what happened next. Joe, my commiserations. Thank you for joining us. John Duggan, congratulations.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the
weekend's golf. Chat to you next week at a crap quiz.
Off the ball.
I scored a goal in some kind of celebrity thing that I managed to get invited to, but Bez from the Happy Mondays was a goal. Oh Jesus! He didn't put up much resistance, but he had the decency. He said, "Good goal, Tom." That was one of the highlights of my life. Like, he was watching the match. His head had been in goal. It's like, oh, that was a good goal, Tom.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
You mentioned the formation, the 5-3-2 tonight. Talk to us a bit about why tonight. I suppose maybe the friendly explains that, how much of a departure it is from previous and how it went.
I think there was positives and negatives. Positives, obviously, we kept Denmark to 1 goal. They did create a lot of chances, but there was bodies in the way. People putting in a really, really honest effort, getting back behind the ball. So there was a lot of support for the defence there. Where we struggled was when we were trying to get out. And I like that formation when you're playing an attacking team and when you can get those wing backs up really high and they're contributing. You're almost getting up there with your 2 strikers and your 4 up top. But today was never going to be a day for that. Denmark were always going to dominate possession. So it did mean a bank of 5. Our centre mids did really honest work in defence, but they were lost then when we were trying to get into attack because we were lacking that number 10 and that wing outlet. So I think it showed that that's definitely a formation we can play if we want to apply a low block against teams who are superior against us. But if we are going to have ambitions of getting forward and getting goals and not relying on set pieces, I'm not sure that would be the right formation for those teams that are better than us. I'd like to see us play it again against a team, again, more around our level where we'll be able to dominate in possession and see, do we get more bodies into the box, more crosses in, and get the likes of Katie and Kiva Keenan, who I thought was excellent as well. Can we get them higher up the pitch and see that what they can do in an attacking sense? Because we've got 3 really solid centre-backs there, Louise Quinn, Diane Caldwell, Niamh Fahey, abundance of experience, but we want to see what we can do going forward because we know what we can do defensively already.
Do you think will she show flexibility with that? Is it a case that, like horses for courses, it suits some of the better teams, and maybe against teams that might be more on our level, we might play something slightly different? Or is she more looking at this formation as something that she wants to bring in pretty much across the board?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what she does against Belgium. Again, Belgium, an opposition of really high calibre. So if she sticks with this formation, it could be something that she's just going to employ when we're playing against those higher teams. I'd like to see it if she is going to stick with it, or I'd like to see her continue on with it rather than chopping and changing. I don't think we fully had an identity in the last campaign. We were good at times in attack with a 4 at the back. We played with a 5 at the back against Germany. So I would like to see us just stick with one identity and really get that nailed down and get those partnerships nailed down. So it's hard to tell what her plan is now. The good thing is, though, is that she does have time. She has all of the summer. Obviously, we're not involved in the Euros to kind of bed down what she wants to do with this team.
I think we're just getting an initial sense of what Ronan O'Gara's style is, but you know that soundbite that he gave to BT after the game was brilliant listening from a multitude of reasons. He's always so honest, he's always so enthusiastic, but there's a thoughtfulness side to Raj that people don't probably see, an emotional intelligence of understanding what makes people tick and not. You know, the appreciation for having to treat the Fijians slightly different than everybody else because that's in their makeup, that's the way they are, they're laid back, and you have to roll with that. There's no point in being antagonized by, you know, someone arriving 2 weeks late for pre-season. Every Fijian and every club seems to be doing that. So it's just it's a real intelligence of how to get the most out of a squad. And that KBA, you know, keep ball alive, that's been a thing for years. It's just he's now phrased it, you know, it's got a pseudonym in that. You know, now everyone's thinking it's the gospel. Toulouse have been doing that for years. It's just it's a piece from New Zealand that he's taken that now all of a sudden Europe has inherited.
That the packaging of it is as important as anything else. Just on that side that you mentioned to him that maybe people don't get to see so much, was that something that you saw in him as a player, or has that become Ronan O'Gara 2020, 2021 and he's worked on that with those clubs he's been at? In terms of thoughtfulness and that.
I think he was always a well thought out player. In that he was a heads up player. He didn't like just running through something for the sake of it. And obviously, you know, we know about his mental toughness, about his kicking game. He had huge inner belief in what he was doing and what he was, you know, the way he was playing. Backed himself 100% of the time, and it looks as though he does that as well from a coaching perspective. But he's obviously identified where La Rochelle are strong as well. If you look at that Kiwi influence at 8, 9, and 10, you know, he's got an appreciation and understanding of how to get the most out of them now as well. And when you've got a spine of a team that are, you know, have been involved in All Black success and World Cup success, you got to make that thrive within your team and bring that out where possible. So you marry that with some of the other parts, some of the French internationals. He just has what looks like a great team, a great squad, but I'm sure that's taken a bit of sifting through. And he's even spoke about the necessity for a bit more team bonding. You know, I've never played in France. I don't know what it's like being involved in in a French squad, but there's a need, he said, to pull it all together a little bit more and get them playing for one another. So I think we're like I said, we're just at the beginning of what Ron O'Gara is capable of delivering, I feel.
Yeah, and we're constantly talking about him being the next Munster Ireland coach, and I'm sure that exposure on BT, as you mentioned, and the interview afterwards will have done his prospects maybe going across the water, maybe no harm either. But as you say, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. You assume
it's inevitable. I think the other thing as well with him, he's plenty of time to come back and coach Munster and potentially coach Ireland. You know, he's only 44. He maybe 45. He's building this international CV. All of a sudden, everyone's talking about him. You know, what's the hurry out of La Rochelle? If he could go and potentially go and win them a bouclier, or maybe even go and get to a European final or win, you know, Europe with them, well, his stock is going to go through the roof. But if he doesn't manage to do that, what's the hurry in coming back? Because sometimes as a coach, you've got to be careful how quickly you get to the summit, because when your time is up at the summit, it's, unless you're going to go and bounce around a la Eddie Jones, which is an unusual thing to do from international team to international team, you know, you have to realise that the ultimate is probably coaching your national team. Everything after that will be a little bit of a disappointment. Even if he goes and coaches another national team, it won't be the same as coaching his own national team, or coaching, you know, from coaching his own province point of view. There's you know, so much of a thrill in that. So he has to take his time in getting there and continue building his coaching acumen. And you know, if it takes another 4 or 5 years, they'll wait for him, because the cycle will be right if the timing is right.
Yeah, he's not going to follow the Sam Allardyce route to coaching and do a tour of clubs. That looks certain at this stage. So just and I don't know if they feature in your 3 picks of potential winners of this tournament, and how much that's changed, Brian, from what you saw last weekend. Who are you thinking now?
I think it's very hard to shy away from even though 2 of the French teams have to go away in Toulouse and Racing. You know, they've been the form teams over the last couple of years, getting to semi-finals and finals, and just looking at what they had to do in the last 16, particularly Toulouse going to Thomond Park, and you know, they were having it hard. It was put to them, and then they responded and reacted, and they have an all-conquering game. They have the muscle up front with the subtleties of a mobile front row able to throw offloads, but then they've got the firepower of their halfbacks, and then Colby and LaBelle on the wings. I just think, and that's with loads of injuries in their backline as well. I do feel as though with guys pulling the strings that are in key positions they're going to be a very difficult prospect, and I fancy them to go to Claremont and win this weekend. And then Racing down in Bordeaux are a bit of a bolter really in this regard. They, you know, no one would have anticipated them coming through. They've got a couple of good French internationals running things, particularly in Jalibert, but I just feel as though the power of Racing will be too much. So, you know, they're the 2 obvious French teams. I think La Rochelle are probably in behind them because I think they will win at home, but the semi-final will be more interesting. But they're capable of going the whole way on the basis of what we've seen so far. So they're the 3 French teams, but I think, you know, the top 2, the Toulouse and Racing, and then the winner of Exeter and Leinster. I think the winner very likely will come from those 3 teams. And it's hard to call this weekend's game, Leinster-Exeter. I bet against Leinster 2 weeks ago against Munster, and I just refuse to do it again. It's going to be a very close run thing against the reigning champions in Sandy Park, with very difficult prospects. Teams that kind of play similar enough styles in that they're not huge risk takers, but they've got some really nice X factor that sometimes put a little gloss on an arm wrestle performance. And you look at the scores that Exeter managed to get after going 14-0 down last weekend against Lyon. They just ground them, get into the opposition 22, and they more often than not come away with 5-pointers from 5-10 yards out.
Is it, like, we don't know what we're going to get with Leinster as part of the issue here, because the Munster game, they were less than convincing. They had last weekend off. We're unsure about what they get. I'm sure that the coaches will have been trying to replicate as much of the intensity of the level of match that they're going into this weekend as possible. What's your sense of what we're going to see from Leinster this weekend, Brian? Is it and how the off week might have impacted on them?
I think the off week is positive for some and negative for some. It's, you look at the internationals that had played, big internationals and then straight into a Pro 14 final, even though some of them were sitting on the bench. They will have been thankful for an extra week's rest. Whereas you look at the non-internationals that would have been chomping at the bit to take on a European powerhouse in Toulon. Another opportunity in what you would have envisaged being a victory for Leinster at home, such as their record there against that Toulon outfit. And what those individuals, the likes of Rory O'Loughlin, those sort of guys, would have wanted to do is put in a big performance and make it all the more difficult if certain players came back from injury this week for them to be dropped. And not getting that opportunity to kind of reinforce their standing in the team is a frustration. You want to play the biggest European games, irrespective of what circumstances have found you within the team, and the guy in possession is a dangerous person if he's playing well. So I don't know what the Leinster team's going to be and whether the likes of Gary Ringrose is going to be back or not. You'd hope that many of those that were selected that last weekend will get a run out this weekend. But it's going to be a really bruising encounter, close to the physicality of a test match, because you've got that many internationals playing against one another, and with so much at stake, it does feel as though these are two of the teams at the very top of Europe.
Who's the best coach in world football at the minute?
I still think you've got to say Pep is, in terms of the rebuilding of City. In terms of, when things weren't working, he started to play Cancelo. So he goes from a 4-3-3, puts Cancelo into that central midfield position from right full. He plays with a false number 9. What he's doing with some of the players like Foden, Sterling, they've all improved under him. De Bruyne has improved so much under him. John Stones now is back to his very best. I would say he is definitely there, but it's so fickle at the highest level that I think Jurgen Klopp this time next year could have a case that if he rebuilds this Liverpool team, wins a Premiership or somehow wins the Champions League this year and backs it up again next year with a Premiership back, you're talking about really fine margins there. But I think the two of them are there. I think Zidane has been dealt a difficult hand at the messing that's gone on in Real Madrid. But I tell you what, every time Zidane has been challenged, I think he's proved himself as a tactically an unbelievable coach. I think he is someone that he may look to move to a different club and just talk to Juventus and try a different challenge, because I'm sure he's frustrated at some of the things going on above his level in Real Madrid. But for me, Zidane is in that sort of upper echelons, and we'll see if he can, maybe win a Champions League this year with an average enough Real Madrid side. That's because whoever wins that tie will play Chelsea, who aren't that good most likely. There's a Champions League final at stake for the winner, Will and Real.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Put your best face forward